The thing about how perspectives change over time. Bobby Rush, member of Congress, said the other day, "I'm ashamed that I voted for the '94 crime bill." You ashamed of that bill?
Not at all. And in fact, I drafted the bill, as you remember.
I know that.
They are beyond the pale, many of those people. Beyond the pale. And it's a sad commentary on society. We have no choice but to take them out of society. Piece of crack cocaine, no bigger than this quarter that I'm holding in my hand. 1/4 of $1. We passed a law through the leadership of Senator Thurman and myself and others, a law that says if you're caught with that, you go to jail.
Just say no.
Today, you're going to meet several people who are former employees of our United States government, people who have looked at this over years who will say, whether it was a conspiracy or not, they don't want to talk about it. But did the CIA know the drugs were coming into the United States of America and help it get here? The answer to the question is yes.
Absolutely.
Does the CIA do this on a regular basis? The answer to the question is
Absolutely. The CIA is the kingpin, the Don.
So you're saying that the CIA is the kingpin of the head of the United States Mafia?
I've put thousands of people in jail. Thousands. DEA gave a British writer once a figure of 3,000. It was a lot more than that. I've never failed in putting a case before court. Conspiracy cases, undercover cases. I've never lost a case.
Ain't I clean, bad machine, super cool, super mean, feeling good for the man, super fly, here I stand, secret stash, heavy bread, baddest bitches in the bed. I'm your pusher man. I'm your pusher man. I'm your pusher man. Silent life of crime. Circumstance, a victim of ghetto demands. Feed me money for style, and I'll let you trip for a while. Insecure from the past, how long can a good thing last? Ooh, got to be mellow, y'all. Gotta get mellow now.
What the story's about. It was about a cocaine ring that operated along the west coast of the United States throughout most of the 80s. And some of the money they were making was going to support an army that the men who ran the cocaine ring worked for, called the FDN. This was an army that the CIA started in 1981 and supported.
better known to us, most of us who remember news, the Contras.
Heavy mind, heavy side, making money all the time. My LD and just me for all junkies to see. Ghetto Prince is my thing, making love's how I swing. I'm your pusher man. I'm your pusher man. 2 bags, please, for a generous fee. Make your world what you want it to be. Got a woman I love desperately. Wanna give her something better than me. Been told I can't be nothing else. Just a hustler in spite of myself. I know I can make it. This life just don't make it. Lord, Lord, yeah. Got to get mellow now. Gotta be mellow, yo.
deal. And here's how they did it. Pfizer, located here in New York, owns a company named Pharmacia Corporation, which owns another company called Pharmacia and Upjohn LLC, which owns Pharmacia and Upjohn Company LLC, which in turn owns Pharmacia and Upjohn Company Incorporated. And what does Pharmacia and Upjohn Company Incorporated do? Nothing. It's a shell created to be a legal shield for Pfizer. And Pfizer, too big to nail, is still doing business with the federal government.
So, Drew, what does Pfizer have to say about all this?
Anderson, nothing on camera. After a lot of back and forth, we got a phone conversation with the company's chief compliance officer. He told us, look, Pfizer takes full responsibility for illegally promoting Bextra, and to prevent it from happening again, here's what Pfizer said it's done. It's set up a leading-edge system. It monitors sales reps, tracking prescription sales and proactively looking for signs that its people are illegally promoting these drugs.
So is Pfizer doing this voluntarily?
No. Not all voluntary. Pfizer, they had to sign what's called a corporate integrity agreement with the Department of Health and Human Services. Basically, the executives at Pfizer have to sign on the dotted line to say that their company is going to comply with the law.
But, I mean, you look at this thing, and, I mean, if Pfizer is too big to fail, and even the biggest fine in history is just a few months' profit, then what's going to stop it from illegally promoting other drugs?
Critics say, Anderson, nothing.
Pfizer owns the cable news hosts.
What?
Yeah, Pfizer caught funneling $12 million to Anderson Cooper to promote the mRNA vaccines to America. Pfizer has funneled a whopping $12 million into the bank accounts of CNN host Anderson Cooper as part of a deal to promote the company's mRNA jabs to the American public. They say they're toxic, but Kurt, you and I know the vaccines are safe and effective.
Yeah,
and
they slow the spread of hospitals being clogged up with horse-based victims.
Right. They're very safe. So that I don't. People went blind. According to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., very few people are aware of the fact that Cooper gets the majority of his CNN paycheck from Pfizer.
I wasn't aware of that.
I wasn't aware of that. 80% of Cooper's $12 million annual salary, roughly $10 million of it, comes directly from Pfizer, and that's according to RFK Jr. And he's worth every penny.
Welcome to The Independent Review, a weekly podcast where we bring you the latest from the world of independent journalism.
Honestly, I'm against this government. I ain't got to cover it up, that's what I meant. Sick of paying bills and I'm sick of paying rent. Seem like I work all the time but don't know where the money went. And the funny shit is we supposed to like this shit, but all y'all politicians could bite this dick. It's a war going on, the ghetto is a cage. They only give you two choices, be a rebel or a slave. So what you do? I rebel. Like an ulcer in the belly of the beast, staying true to it. Since my whole street days in the blue Buick, niggas been fighting so long, seem like I'm used to it. Now what y'all know about how the cool do it? Truth fluid, Booth put the funk to it, ain't nothing to it. This is for the cheese all the way to the bay, from Frisco to Oakland, all over LA. You got to get up. Right now, turn the system upside down. It's supposed to be fed up by now. Turn the system upside down.
Welcome to the Independent Review, live on AM Wake Up channels on Rumble, Rockfin, Odyssey, and Indie News on Twitter. Let's jump right into this first clip with Ricky Verandas and Ryan Cristian.
It's been clear to me the entire time, but I don't think it's about the same kind of blunt censorship. I think we're in a new realm of this, and I think a lot of people are trying to pick up on this, that we're dealing with something much more nefarious. And he's already been clear about the fact that he's using Twitter, your engagement, all of ours on this platform to train his artificial intelligence program. He stated that publicly, and that's XAI, which I am convinced is simply the XAI from DARPA that ended in 2021. I mean, it's very transparent. It's the same program. And so he's just this extension of these military programs in my mind. This is the face for it. But either way, the point is it's about using us to very weirdly kind of create outcomes for what they're trying to accomplish. But at the same time, we're being experimented on. Like, this is about corralling, social engineering. It's about predictive programming. Like, I'm of the mind that we are literally engaging with different experiences, not just cultivated ads and your people you follow, but like specifically tailored to see, if these things pop, controlled to see if people can be driven into certain circles. And I mean, I'm telling you, this has always been kind of what these things do, but it's on steroids right now. I mean, I would argue point blank, if we think that this is any better than Jack Dorsey's Twitter, then I just don't think we're fully seeing the way this is being used. But I could definitely be wrong.
Yeah, I feel like he's not censoring anything he agrees with.
Yeah.
That's kind of where he draws the line. It's like, as long as I agree with it, say whatever the hell you want. But
free speech, though, if I like it,
problems with it. It's like, oh, you are giving free speech. Like the things that are being censored on other platforms, you're letting them say it, not because you're a free speech platform per se, but it's because it's stuff you agree with. And
well, that's interesting though. I don't agree with that. I mean, it's hard to say. I would say that it's just as likely, and this is where my mind goes. Elon, okay, so taking the point of like being the face of these government programs, like it's the same concept, the way that I would see that he has been tapped to be the Pied Piper of technocracy. And you know what I keep saying is that they're being played. I mean, a lot of conservatives keep calling this out, like the way he responds, the whole Keck thing he just did. They're starting to feel like they're being made fun of. And I agree. I've been saying that from the beginning. I feel like he's almost I don't think he's like deliberately making fun of them, but he feels like he's being what they want. And it's just like belittling, that's the way I look at it. My point though, is that clearly that you, I just lost the thread. What was it? The censorship point of it was, what would you just say before that?
So I was saying that it seems like as long as you're...
Oh, no, I got it. That he likes it, right? Okay, so the point being that I get the very eerie sense that it's him doing that with that too. Like he's presenting that, and that really not that he likes it. I mean, some of it is that. I think he's just, he's engaging with the content he likes, but it's about trying to create what they said these people would become with the way they set this up. Like, okay, my thoughts, if you remember, on like the Azov movement, and the way that was organized to essentially be like a trap for, the MAGA, basically Russia influencing MAGA to be racist as white supremacist, like that blew up in their face, I think. That's my opinion. I think that was being laid out and it just didn't connect. And like, I think it's because we called it out, but a lot of other things happened. And all of a sudden on a dime, it was like, wait, never mind. They're not racist and you're confused. It was all we all saw it. It was really disjointed. And so my point is like, that's part of what we're seeing is that Elon Musk is playing the role of creating, or at least trying to create the illusion of creating, that all of the Republicans are actually secret Nazis and actually racist. And you see what I'm point? And it's working to a degree. You're a lot of these people are coming out of the woodwork. And I mean, I think we can all acknowledge that there is obviously a very racist veins going through this party. I don't even think it's close to the majority, but it's there. And it has to do with it really came out during the H-1B conversation, right? Where people were like, no. And I've been saying this from the beginning, just no immigrants. I thought we were all in agreement. Immigrants bad. And that's why Elon was like, no, that's not what, there's some good and there's some versions of it where the highest rate. And they were just like, fuck that. It's got to be nobody. And my point was, okay, right there, you can see that, right? And so that is what they're trying to keep people thinking is what all of these people are. We saw it with the red hats being called anti-Semites, racist, and now they're the ones calling other people anti-Semites, which is ridiculous. But, I think it's important to see how that plays out. And so if he can effectively create the illusion that, see, this is what happens. That's the whole narrative is, this is why we can't have nice things, right? Because you guys come out and say Heil Hitler and whatever. And, that it justifies, even though it doesn't, if you really understand constitutional rights, but to them, it creates justification for censorship, for saying, see, this is what they really are. And so we have to lean more into the I don't see it as left or right, but that's how it's perceived. The left version of we control the paternalism, right? Where we dictate it, it's in your best interest. You guys are not smart enough to be able to handle free speech. We'll give you the limited speech. I genuinely think that's what it is, even if he doesn't know that. But that's what I mean is I don't think he necessarily likes all this stuff. Like, for example, who knows what the whole thing with the H-1B thing was, but he clearly seemed to have an emotional reaction, right? He would respond. I just don't feel that was part of an agenda, unless, maybe I'm missing something. My point is, if you look back through all the time he's been in control of Twitter, he has leaned into a lot of things that are like borderline considered over the line, whether you might racist or whatever. And that's just, collective an opinion. You guys can decide for yourselves. My point is that seems to be what he, in some ways, has leaned into, or groups that he's leaned into or followed or rised up with his yes, true, correct responses, where he just jumps it up into the air. And then yet suddenly these people are like, all immigrants bad. And he's like over the top about it, censoring, lashing out. And so I get the sense that maybe he's just not actually okay with that. But the agenda is to kind of cultivate it. Just my personal opinion, But you get what I'm saying is it's a very that's how I see Twitter today. That it's this weird social engineering kind of cultivation of different agendas or using it to seed through these rapidly rising narratives, drones or fog or whatever else, which doesn't mean they're fake at all. But we see how it gets out of hand. I actually think more or not than not today, it's narratives that are actually true at the core, but are meant to look stupid. You see what I'm saying? Like a Turn the Frogs gay dynamic, where ultimately we're talking about a very real thing where atrazine or any kind of endocrine disrupting chemical is bleeding off from factories and causing hormonal disruption in the environment. But that turns into the turn of the frog's gay, and it becomes, oh, that's stupid, we're going to ignore it, whether he meant to do that or not. That's how that worked out. And so that's kind of the way I see it playing, is that people end up ignoring it. Anyway, I've ranted long enough, but I think that's important to think about, because it's more a couple steps removed than I think it's been in a long time.
Well, he's been pushing the Tommy Robinson thing recently. He's the guy's
a Mossad agent, man. I'm telling you.
Who's that?
Tommy Robinson.
Oh.
I mean, the guy's very pro-Israel, very in my opinion, he is working with intelligence, whether he's Mossad specifically or not. That's my opinion. And I think there's a lot of evidence to back that up.
I don't know if that was right from the beginning, or in time people are like, hey, we can use this guy. He has
fair. That's fair.
He has incredible influence. He's outspoken. He's fearless. He's not afraid to say his beliefs. I'm definitely against censoring him. I remember Art years ago, when he was getting censored on every platform. I think it was called I can't remember what the show was, but RT had a show where they invited him on and they had a debate with him, and I'm like, this is exactly what we should do when there's somebody that you think is dangerous or has dangerous ideas or disagree with, like put them in a chair and across from somebody else who disagrees with them, and they challenge each other's ideas and they question each other's ideas, and let the public make up their own minds, instead of you trying to make it for them and saying, hey, this is too dangerous for you to listen to, these ideas are not for you or whatnot.
That's paternalism.
Yeah. And he makes, I know he was on Jordan Peterson too, and Jordan Peterson got some shit for having him on. I think there is some concern in all countries. Like, obviously there's concern about immigration and the type of immigrants are going into your country, and I think a lot of people want to try to hold on to their cultural roots, and if they feel like maybe somebody is infiltrating their cultural roots and not adapting to the country, I can hear that out. I can understand that. I can understand the concerns and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I think in all cases, there's racism in all aspects. I mean,
and it has to be allowed. The point is, that's just we can all say I think being inherently racist for no reason is disgusting, but you have a right to be that way. That's what free speech and liberty and all these things mean, which I know you agree with. It's like, you have to be able to have your own thoughts. Which I agree with you, by the way. Like, the way it should be done, bring it out, air it out, right? And challenge those bad ideas. I think they're so afraid of people, like, they know there's elements that would lean into it just for fun, or just to watch the world burn, for example, or maybe because they are racist, and they're just so terrified of giving those people any, that's what I think. And so, but again, whether you agree with that or not, it comes down to, it's wrong to do. It is paternalism. And then eventually the government takes, you give a mouse a cookie, that glass of milk is right behind the corner. That's what's going to happen with the government. They're going to constantly take more steps,
When you look at the Kanye West thing, right? A lot of musicians, a lot of record labels, a lot of very powerful people are Jewish. You can understand when somebody like Kanye West, and not to justify his extremism in his ideas, but trying to understand where they come from. You see a lot of, maybe minorities like himself, maybe being taken advantage of or whatnot. And then you can see how that can mold a dislike of a certain type of person. I'm Portuguese. There's a lot of Portuguese construction companies in town. If you come get hired at a Portuguese construction company and you're not Portuguese and you feel like you're not a part of the clique, or you feel like they treat you poorly or whatever, I can see why, due to that life experience and that small sample of dealing with Portuguese people, it can give you a bad taste, and you can end up molding your perception of Portuguese people. So it's no different than, like, in Massachusetts, I live near some pretty bad cities like Holyoke and Springfield, Mass, where the Basketball Hall of Fame is. And when you constantly see minorities getting arrested on TV, like my parents, for example, they came to America. I was born in America. I came here when I was a kid. In Portugal, like, a black person or a white person, like, you're either, like, they kind of judge you based on your nationality. Like, are you Portuguese or are you French? Because there's, like, all different shades of Portuguese and French and Spaniards and whatnot, because of obviously all the exploring and obviously having control of some of these African countries like Mozambique and Macau and or not Macau, but Mozambique and Angola. And so when you go back to Portugal, like, if somebody's black but they speak Portuguese, they grew up in Portugal, like, there's no division between that, right? Like it's just like, oh, they're just a darker skinned Portuguese person. And then a lot like my parents, and I'm using my parents as a firsthand example, they come to America and they put on the news, and then every person that's being arrested is a minority. So slowly that feeling that they had towards darker skinned people, is molding and changing into like, oh, now in America they're all bad, and not to say that my parents are like that, but I know people who come to America and I didn't see them as racist by any stretch, but then you could kind of every once in a while something that seems a little bit anti-minority will come out, and you're like, I wonder how much of that has been from the consuming of news media and painting this picture of like, oh, these are the bad people and then these are the good people, and then you go into the much more difficult conversations. I know a guy who worked at a prison with some family members of my wife's family, and a real nice guy, but boy was he racist against white people. It was wild because he like had no I don't know if he just didn't know how it was coming off or he didn't care. And that was just truly how he believed. But he would just come out and say it like, hey, I wouldn't want my kids marrying a white person. He's like, I want them to marry within their own race and whatnot. And he would talk about how all of black people's problems are all rooted from white people. And when he would talk about it, you could tell that there was some dislike, there's some anger there. And
well, can I say something real quick? It's interesting because, it's the same problem, obviously, in reverse, but to pinpoint it is, obviously, I mean, look, if you really want to be objective about this and go back to, as far back as you want to look, really, Jim Crow era before, and the reality that it's objectively clear that there was the most disgusting racism that existed in this country. And then we can argue that things changed or slowly evolved into something different, but even let's just say rapidly between all that time to today, and somehow argue that there's just no remnants of that everything else is just now everything's good and anything else you say, it's all in your mind. Like, it's absurd. It's obvious that there are clear issues that exist, but it's not like it was like then, entirely. But at the same time, you think about what it did to stifle all of these generational families with all that happened for all that time frame. You know what I mean? Like, in every possible way. And to say that wouldn't have any lasting effect. Like, my point is just, it's absurd to argue that there's not clearly still issues. But my point is that, so in the sense of him saying rooted the white people, whatever you want to think about that, there are valid points to make about how historically there's clear connection. But it's his choice to make that about every white person around him today. So that, in my opinion, makes him not a good person. That makes him, I don't care that is a choice to be, you're bad because of your skin color. Now, if we were saying that, or anybody else was saying that about another race, he would say they were disgusting, racist, not you're good in every aspect of your life besides that. That's not how that works in any other context, right? So in my opinion, that's an example of somebody who would probably be that way in other parts of his life. That's my personal opinion, whether you're black, you're brown, you're anything else. And I think what's interesting is the same thing happens in any other context. So take a white person who has a bad experience with, let's just say, with a Portuguese company or whatever. The point is that person, I mean, your experiences in life obviously flavor what you then feel and do in your life. And so if you had many bad experiences with a certain group of people, like anybody would have some kind of an emotional reaction, but the choice would be to not allow that to be any person you meet who looks that way. Like it's a conscious choice as a person to not be. It's like I say every day. Every day you have to wake up to choose to be a good person, right? Every day you wake up again, you choose it again. You wake up again, you choose it again until it becomes a part of your nature. And it's the same idea here, right? That you recognize, like, that's not fair. This person is not that guy. This is a person who lives somewhere else, has different experiences, and just because he looks the same, I'm going to give him a fair shot. Or this looks the same, we shouldn't do it. I'm going to give him a fair shot instead. And I know you agree with this. So it's hard because we always want to overlook certain things. As we can all see today, there are certain areas that are, thou shall not pass. There are certain areas that's okay. Go ahead and make fun of them, and it's hypocrisy. Whether that's white or Indian or, whatever all these different overlaps are, depending on where you are in the world. Like, funny example, in Hawaii, I lived there for over 2 years. And obviously, as a white person, it doesn't bother me. I mean, I have different life experiences, so I would first point that out. If I lived through an entire generational difference, maybe that would change my perspective, but doesn't bother me. I don't think about it. I don't let their words bother me, no matter, because I'm Puerto Rican or whatever else. It doesn't bother me. My point, though, is that it's everywhere. I get called a haole or racist terms all the time, which just means white today, basically. But it's also just other categories, though. Interestingly enough, Portuguese is something that's very, very negative about that in Hawaii, like almost in a joking sense, but like that's something that's made fun of all the time. And so the point is clearly that you can see that there's allowable levels of this, right? Or I was going to say something else about it, I just forgot. But the point being that ultimately, I was going to make a point there. I lost it. But anyway, it's interesting to see different locations in the world that have different perspectives. And, it really just all comes down to choosing not to allow that to be the case or choosing not let it bother you, And so I would say that those people who allow that are, probably allowing it elsewhere in their life. But go ahead.
Remember that I believe he was a filmmaker, that black filmmaker who went to go live or meet KKK members and then became friends with them, and then a bunch of them end up like leaving the Klan because of it. And it's funny because instead of creating this divide where like now you fight hatred with hatred, right? Instead of being like, okay, these people hate me, so I'm going to hate them. He's like, let me get to know them and let me see where this hatred comes from. And then little by little, he became friends with these people, and they end up liking him, and many of them left the Klan. And that's the thing, like that's powerful. The understanding of others is something that we don't put enough time into. Where like Kanye, for example, like I'm trying to understand, like, okay, where does this worldview come from? And then I'm like, okay, I can kind of understand. And then like, okay, if I'm a Jewish person, where does this worldview of being afraid of, everybody turning on us or this dislike of us, this fear of maybe that going to, taking the next step. Like I can understand that too, where a Jewish person is like, hey, all this, college protesting is scaring the shit out of me, and so I
can tell you what I think about it. I mean, I think it's very obvious the Zionism is the core root of that problem. I mean, and this is becoming a prominent point in Jewish circles today. I mean, it's day by day, I'm seeing far more prominent Jewish people in the world, actors, politicians, or Jewish organizations, or Orthodox Jewish communities that are standing up at large and saying Zionism does not represent Judaism. Like, I mean, the point is that all of what we're talking about, we're Tommy Robinson, the immigration, all this stuff. Like, so it's interesting is that people who see, like, so taking Kanye West, I would argue. Now, this is my opinion. Take it for what you will. I think this is all backed up by factual information, but it's my opinion. Is that ultimately you can see that Zionism as an ideology has made it's designed to utilize different things to basically justify its existence. Now, Judaism was its core point. Now, a couple things to begin with. Let's remember that Herzl, the founder of the Zionist organization, was an atheist. That's a documented fact. You could argue he changed because of some X, Y, and Z, but he's also has journals that you can look up that have all these very anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish comments. It's interesting. And ultimately, the original organization was mostly Christians. So it's interesting to think about. Now, today, the point is that most Zionists are actually Christian, not support Zionists that are Christian, but that are Christian Zionists. That's important. So when we call out Zionism as a problem, the argument that you just hate Jewish people is just factually incorrect. I mean, I guarantee there's an overlap no matter what you're talking about. That's always the case. There's always going to be somebody that's racist or somebody that, blah, blah, blah. The reality, though, is that, at least from my perspective, but I think most of this conversation is highlighting that Zionism is this problem. Now, Kanye West, I would say, is my example of somebody who has fallen for that trap, where Zionism has occupied this idea, right, has taken this idea of Judaism, used the name Israel because it comes from the Bible, right? The Balfour Declaration from the UK government gave them this territory, right? This is not God-given. They're genetically engineering a red heifer to argue this is a God-sent thing. Like this is Zionism, right? And that's why Orthodox Jewish communities, a lot of them today, are going, this is blasphemy. Like, God has not come back. God did not give this territory to you. Like, and you guys are fronting as that to capture the minds of all these people, and as well as Christians. And so the point of Kanye is that, or rather the point of Zionism is using the idea that it is Judaism. Therefore, you create this idea that you have to protect yourself from all the hate from Jewish people. But then it overlaps with the ADL or even AIPAC and different groups of the past and Israel in general. I mean, documented by many different groups, and I'm going to go over it more today, manufacturing hate. Manufacturing things that drive people to hate Jewish people, manufacturing hate events. The ADL has been caught more than once literally manufacturing Nazi marches. I have articles from mainstream posts that go back 20 years saying ADL literally caught faking a Nazi march in, was it Chicago? I forget. I'm going to go over it more today. And so it's just incredible. And so the point is, why would they do that? Why would all these different Zionists during this last discussion fake being stabbed in the eye with a flag or fake, that doesn't mean that there's not racist activity. There is. But the point is that you can clearly see an engineered thing going on here. And so that is what I think people like Kanye and the rest, or maybe they're part of this lie, but are caught in that manipulation. So it drives them, because it's easy to look at this without diving further and go, well, it seems to be all Jewish people, even though there's not. There's a lot of Christians involved in the same dynamic, but that's because that's how this is being directed. Manufacturing billboards in New York that makes it seem like Jewish people are the one, we're Jewish and proud in front of New York. And it's like, what is that? What is that? Why is that there? Right? Like, what's the reason for that in the middle of all this? The point is that Jewish people in New York are going like, I'm not afraid of these people. I don't feel threatened. And this is about trying to push that in your face in order to make you think that that is the focal point. That's my opinion of that. Either way, the bottom line is about clearly, provably using these populations and then driving people like Kanye to think that's the focal point of the problem. So then he becomes an advocate, stopping one step short of realizing that Zionism is using these groups, and goes, Jewish people are the problem, or however he's framing that, which then Zionism goes, see, we told you. He's why we have to exist, because they're all going. I mean, you look at places like Israel in general. I mean, Israel is essentially one gigantic human shield. You've got settlements built out illegally on literally illegal land, not Gaza or West Bank, which are also all legal occupied territory, but I'm talking about all the rest of Israel. That stems from the origin of Palestine. And these illegal settlements, which, by the way, even the settlements, not even proper Israel, but the settlements around it, were once part of what was going to be part of the 67 borders. So those, like, if you even could call it that, doubly illegal. So they're on these settlements, and they've built out all these illegal settlers that have come from New York and the rest of the place of the world that have no real ancestral connection to the land there, other than them taking it and calling it the home of the Jews and ultimately living there, and then keeping like the IDF headquarters in the center of Tel Aviv. And clearly the point is that when you know you're illegally occupying, that gives the occupied the legal right of armed resistance. We've talked about this. That's the Geneva Conventions. So that means effectively you've surrounded yourself with people who are your human shields. These are the Jewish population that believe if you can't realize by now that you're more safe as a Jew, or you're more unsafe as a Jew in Israel than literally anywhere else in the world, I can go off forever. The point is that I think Kanye and the rest are falling for that and then becoming inadvertent tools for why that needs to happen. And go look at someone like Dan Cohen, for example, who's Jewish himself, who's been an excellent journalist, who's been breaking this down for a long time, or somebody like Zachary Foster, who has a PhD from Princeton on Palestinian history. The receipts are transparent. The guy has like a seven thread compilation, and each thread has like 20 different tweets on it that goes through each example of the different lies of Zionism, the origin point, what they've done, the Nakbas, everything. It is exactly what is now becoming clear to the world. If we can't look over there and recognize that every factual point you can look at demonstrates open genocide, not just genocide, but gleeful genocide, praising the genocide, posting videos, wearing their clothes, signing on the wall. Today, women in Israel just going, I don't care how many civilians you kill. Nobody should exist in Palestine. This is culturally immersed. But I would still point out, I do not think it's all Jews or all Israelis. But it seemed like the U.S. government has convinced Americans, and it's dissipating as well, that we should just all want war and we can take what we want. It's the same game. A lot of Israelis have fallen for it, but more and more are beginning to grow past it and call it out, and the world is beginning to see it as they're supporting ISIS in Syria and occupying land in Lebanon and taking all of Syria. It's just transparent what's happening.
Next, we have this clip from Hard Lens Media on State Farm, pulling fire insurance from residents in California.
All lies will be exposed.
So, you know how you see all that commercial from State Farm? You're in good hands. Well, apparently you're not in good hands. All right, you are not in good hands. State Farm, one of the biggest insurers in California, canceled hundreds of homeowners' policies last summer in the Palisade areas, the same area that's now being ravaged by the devastating wildfires. So I want to pull this little tweet from Easy Street from our good friends at Unusual Whales. Unusual Whales has done a lot of great work in regards to exposing these politicians who are doing insider trading, and this tweet did come out. And when I looked at it, I was shocked. Then I rubbed my eyeballs and I looked at it again, and I said, gee, these insurance companies and these big brain CEOs and their board of executives Really haven't learned anything from December, okay? Because if you want people to snap and go werewolf, this is how you do it. And now maybe an inch of compassion could be given. But, oh, wait, I have to remember, these are insurance companies. They're not human. I want to pull up this article here. Again, this is from Unusual Whales. State Farm, one of the biggest insurers in California, canceled hundreds of homeowners policies last summer. State Farm, again, as we said before, is again a major insurance policy holder in California. The company justified its decision as a necessary step to prevent financial failure. Why is that? Amid the increasing frequency and intensity of wildfires in high-risk areas of the state. However, as multiple fires continue to devastate Southern California, many residents will likely depend on their insurers to recover once the flames are extinguished. State Farm canceled around 1,600 policies in the Pacific Palisades area alone, part of the larger decision to cut 72,000 policies across California for houses and apartments in 2024, according to ABC7. The company stopped issuing new homeowners policies in the state as early as 2023, citing wildfire risk and regulatory challenges in zip codes such as 95033 Santa Cruz and 95409 Santa Rosa. Over 65 and nearly 48% of policies, respectively, were canceled last summer. Well, then what good are you? Why are you even in the room? In March 2024, a letter to Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara, State Farm President and CEO Denise Hardin said the cancellations were reluctant. They were reluctant. Everybody, put down your pitchforks. Put down your weapons. They were reluctant. Let us show some compassion. Where's your heart, people? Do you feel that they're being reluctant? Let's have democracy in the chat. Type 1 for a yes, Kit. They're reluctant. Where's your heart? Type 2. I don't give a damn if they're reluctant. This is malicious. I wonder how many 2s are going to be in the chat. I wonder. They were reluctant, but necessary measure to stabilize the company's financial position. Hardin noted that rate increases alone were insufficient to address the growing risk exposure. We must now take action to reduce our overall exposure, as most insurers in California have already done, she wrote. California's insurance crisis. State Farm's move is part of a broader trend in California, where private insurers have increasingly withdrawn from high-risk areas. Hey, Governor Newsom, Mayor Karen Bass, maybe that's where you do your job and maybe make these areas less high risk. You know, that's supposed to be your job as a leader, as a politician. Is that a controversial statement? I guess it is. So, folks, it's a controversial statement here. High risk area, beware. This has left many homeowners struggling to find coverage, driving a surge in policies issued by California's Fair Plan. The state's insurer of last resort Fair Plan policies more than doubled between 2020 and 2024, reaching to 452,000, according to Cap Ratio. Most insurers cite rising wildfire risk and state regulations limiting premium hikes as reasons for cutting coverage. This has led to a growing property insurance crisis, making it harder for residents to secure affordable insurance when they need it the most. Case in point, this video is from Hotspot. It only has 41,000 views. Hold on, let me read the title of it. Woman says her 90-year-old parents got canceled from their fire insurance as their home burns in Southern California. Old or young? We're all being left alone. You know, kind of plucks at my heartstrings here just a little bit when I hear stories like this, you know. And my grandpa would always say, hey, you're not alone. People of LA, you're going to get through this. You're going to get through this.
I'm not supposed to be here, but this is my parents' home.
I know the feeling.
And they just they got canceled from their fire insurance. So they're dealing with this. They're 90 years old. And through the state of California, because of this, they're 90 years old. They've lived in this house for 75 years. and they've had the same insurance. And these insurance people decided to cancel their fire. And we're going through this, and it just happened, and they have no fire insurance. So thank you, California insurance companies, supporting residents who pay taxes and love California. And they wonder why people leave California.
First and foremost, you did get your parents out safely.
I live in Sierra Madre. My parents are in Sierra Madre, but...
And now you know that it is under evacuation as well, north of Sierra Madre Boulevard.
Yeah, I snuck here. You know, there's a will, there's a way. Probably shouldn't do it, but you know what? Under the circumstances, send me to jail. That's fine.
It is unbelievable what's happening.
No. You did what you were supposed to do. You went for your family. That's what counts.
Happening here to the neighbors. Your parents' house is still standing. You had a hose. You're doing what you can.
I mean, I have a hose. It doesn't compare to these beloved neighbors that I've known. I was born and raised in this house, and I live in Sierra Madre, and I'm now 62 years old. And this is the house I was born and raised in, and I've never moved out of Pasadena, Sierra Madre, Hastings Ranch. You know,
well, let me tell you, it does help for people who aren't here to know what's happening. So you sharing that story, it does a service. I came up to you without even asking your name.
My name is Lynn Levin Guzman. This is the Levin household.
To the parents of Lynn, you raised a good daughter.
I'm a nurse for over 30 years in emergency room. I deal with fire all the time and firefighters. And this situation here, luckily, people got out because those are my patients. The people who are not so fortunate to get out.
As you mentioned, let's just hope everyone's okay. Lynn, I'm going to let you get back to it. And for you taking the time, we thank you. To your parents, we wish them the best as well. As I send it back to you, there's Lynn again with the hose. She's using a garden hose, getting the awnings, getting the roof of the house, doing anything she can. We say that as the embers are blowing directly on us here in the Upper Hastings Ranch community. She's here, her brother's here, and you know that there's other, let me tell you, the majority of the homes in this community are still standing. We drove past many on the lower side that are still standing, but the night is young.
It would be nice, reporters, if you could kind of sort of help, but folks, remember, even there's only so much that they can do too. All right. Can't ask them to lift up Mount Olympus, because remember, once that order is given to evacuate the areas, because the firefighters can't control and stop the fires, the wind is too strong. The elements are all set correctly for a very devastating wall of fire to impact countless homes. And yet these insurance companies have just abandoned all these people. And California's own state insurance, well, the state is right now suffering economically. All right. There are people leaving California. There are businesses leaving California en masse. Why is it? And I don't want to be wrong here. Why is it that I get this feeling that state insurance won't be able to cover anybody for anything? We should look at the people of Lahaina and ask them how they're doing. I want to pull this up here as well. This is from Rob Schneider, comedian. F you, State Farm, screw you and all your phony commercials. You are a pile of crap for canceling insurance policies for Californians. I will never use State Farm insurance ever again. And again, this is from Community Notes. Readers added context. So that you know, California lawmakers have imposed price controls on insurance companies in the state. This makes it impossible for insurers to price coverage accurately. The result is insurance companies are leaving the state. Still, how many people have to suffer now? Going back to this, again, these fires started over the weekend. It's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Here we are now with such a devastating fire. Now, as it stands, too, about 2,900 acres have been burnt in the Pacific Palisades. The Easton fire burning near there, 1,000 acres affected. The Hearst fire, nearly 500 acres. The fires are being fueled by winds that are gusting up to 100 miles per hour, according to sources, and the firefighters are stretched thin. Want to pull this up here. Public reaction and criticism. State Farm's cancellations have drawn criticism as wildfires continue to devastate communities. Some residents and lawmakers expressed frustrations over insurance's withdrawal from the state, calling for reform to address the crisis. In her letter to Commissioner Laura Harden, acknowledged the challenges posed by the company's actions, but reiterated State Farm's willingness to collaborate on broader reforms to stabilize the insurance market in California. Shout out to Unusual Whales. Thank you for featuring this story, and more importantly, I'm glad that Hotspot was able to get that story of the young woman who is trying to fight for her parents' homes. She's not the only one doing that. It's not going to be enough because there's a vast difference between using, civilian issued garden hose to a, typical firefighter fighting hose. It's going to make a difference. It's night and day. And unfortunately, even if the fires don't destroy the homes, let's say that territory remains unscathed, there's the aftermath. The infrastructure, electrical power lines, and water is going to be shut off. A lot of people are going to be on their own. There are also many communities that are still on their own, even after those devastating hurricanes impacted Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. We are on our own. The insurance companies aren't going to help us, and our politicians aren't going to help us. It's up to us to save ourselves. Mutual aid, community work, community organizing, building movements and organizations not connected to Washington, D.C. It's got to be us. We want to save the world. We got to do it. Nobody from any state capitol building, nobody from D.C. is going to be riding on horseback to save us. They're not going to do it. That's not who they are. It's us. The only way this country is going to change is if the people step up. We can't trust those people in power. Why? Because they take money from the insurance companies too. The healthcare insurance industry, we saw what they did. We saw they influence and buy off politicians. We see how all these lobby groups do it. It's madness. And we're better than this. You're in good hands. Yeah, here's 2 hands for you. That's what the insurance companies are doing to you right now.
SWAT team took your neighbor today. Watched them as they walked him away. You told yourself extremists come in all different shapes. Met his eyes and lowered your gaze. Is it too late for us to ever change?
Now, let's take a look at this clip from Graham and Derek from Grimerica Outlawed.
I don't pay attention, so. Okay, guys, welcome back. After a nice holiday break, we're back with the Grimerica Outlawed News Roundup, or the first one of 2025, January 8th, 2025, with Welcome to Come and Kuckerberg. So we're starting the new year off a little raunchy.
Well, yeah. I mean, how do we not? There's so much going on. I'm just gonna pop out a link here. I just want to get a link out to our chat here just in case. But yeah, it's just I've got so much content and a lot of it we have to talk about some of the stuff that's going on with Canada. But I mean, I just hope that I'm sort of praying that I can put out something like streamlined and that's good content and not bouncing all over the place. Cause I know I'm going to forget stuff and then want to go back to it because I've got so much that's sort of applicable to what's going on right now. I'm just hoping for smooth transitions, I guess. And we can, get some good segments going here because there's so much going on. It's crazy. Like, I mean, I could just kick it off with Bruce Fenton's post here, he says, drone swarms, super fogs, self-igniting alien whistleblowers, catastrophic wildfires, unending genocide, Musk interference madness, viral outbreak, psychic kids, resigning leaders. And that's just week 1. 2025 is set to be wild. I'm ready for the pivot to prehistoric alien visitation and intervention in human origins. If the zeitgeist gets there, I have some mind-frying accounts and supporting evidence to share. So I agree, buddy. It's going to be, it's unbelievable. I cannot believe how much.
I haven't been following them, so I never know if they're crazy or if it's just a standard, oh no, fires are crazy when they're not really crazy,
The fires?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Yeah. I'm not saying crazy as in like
crazier than normal.
Yeah, but
you're not saying that?
I'm not saying that, but it's massive, I guess, is the point. We got Canadian water bombers down there and, but we got to talk about the
Venezuelans. We had Venezuelans here just this summer.
I know.
And I would argue not a crazy fire season. Regular fire season. When I first moved here, the first year I moved here, and I think 2002, the very first year my cousin was out here visiting because he had to come all the way out from Ontario to fight fires in the Crow's Nest.
Yeah, your internet's really breaking up right now.
My internet is?
Yeah, you're really jerking and sputtering.
It says it's fine on my end.
It's hard to believe the wildfires are so bad in January, right? It's just hard for us. Like we've been in like sub-zero for months and months now. Like today was the first day above zero here in Saskatchewan, and since I don't know when. Feels like it, anyways.
I think California's the same all the time, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I thought it was somewhat seasonal, but just for that much those big of fires in January, it just seems weird. But I'm not saying it's like due or anything like that. I don't know. I haven't looked into it either, but there's just so much going on. I can't believe how much traction this Canada, United States, Mexico is getting, or the North American Union, and they go. It's just mind blowing, dude.
I don't know that it's traction so much as
algorithms.
It triggered a lot of people. Definitely triggered
a lot of people.
Yeah, it's triggered a lot of people for sure. Like it started off. It was funny to watch Canadian conservative Twitter start off like, haha, you guys can't take a joke. Come on. And now they're all freaking the fuck out.
What do you mean?
Well, because now they're all triggered. Because it's funny because I was just going through Twitter, which I will not stop calling it. If they let me back on, I'm not going to stop calling it Twitter. I was going through and it's like all these accounts I, kind of follow for certain things. They're like every one of them is just freaking out about the one guy's talking about fighting people in the cold Canadian winters and it's like, oh man, you guys have fucking jumped the shark. I can't believe it. You're felling for your own stuff. But there is also the sign of it that if we were to play a tape, and I was going to do this, but I just didn't have time because I just thought about it today, but we could probably find a tape of a bunch of stuff Trump was saying in 2015 and 2016 that people would say, man, that's crazy. Okay, this is a crazy guy to say it. And almost all of it ends up being true. There's like this hydrochloroquine thing, and it ends up being all these little things that he gets called out as being crazy, but he almost has this weird Alex Jones thing where if you dig deep enough, a lot of it ends up.
Because I don't think he's intentionally lying about stuff. He's exaggerating and he's kind of like rounding up and rounding down and stuff like that. But he's not throwing out stuff that's going to get this is my opinion, that is going to get fact checked as a lie. But they'll tell him he's lying no matter what he says. It's pretty bad. But to see everybody like it's really dividing. Actually, it's dividing the whole. Let's just call it
dividing the right.
The right, yeah, the base, like Polivier's base. I mean, there's a bunch, like, let's say, I mean, I'm kind of on the side where it's like I'm ready to go. I mean, I've been thinking about living in a different place. If my circumstances were different, I wouldn't be here. I mean, I think Canada's completely fallen. It's gone. There's no hope for it right now. If I had a little hope, maybe, but then there's a whole bunch of other people that, we're gonna fight for our, and then I'm like, were you guys out there? Are you jabbed? Have you fought? Were you you were supporting the convoy? Like, where were you in the last fucking 5 years?
Well, I don't know. None of us really did any fighting, but we did do some.
Well, hey, we did our part. I mean, come on, we did our part.
Yeah,
we got censored left, right, and center. We got it shut, like they shut us down basically during it. So we tried.
It didn't help.
I mean, I cried on the side.
So, I mean, this is interesting to me because I don't know if you remember, but I think I predicted the North American Union on this show like a year ago.
Yeah, we've talked a lot. We've talked a lot about Alberta joining and Alberta and Saskatchewan becoming a state. And
didn't I play that whole thing with the clips on what the collapse of Canada would look like? Or did I just watch that? And well, anyway, I went down this rabbit hole like a year ago with following a bunch of stuff about reading some stuff and watching some videos that I found about just like all these different ways. I think one of them was the political guy I follow, Canadian Bagel or whatever. Canadian Bagel, maybe.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, it was just all these different things about how the country could start to break down,
Yeah.
And there is also the fact that during every America seems to go through these sort of golden ages when it's not falling apart. And in each one of them, it has expanded its territory with places like Hawaii and Alaska. And outside of that, to a lesser extent, places like Panama, which they later gave away, Puerto Rico, Costa Rica. I don't know if it's both of those, but it's one of them that they don't even get actual space. Puerto Rico? Is it Puerto Rico? Okay. Now you got Argentina using American money. I'll say this much. I don't know what it's going to look like. I always thought there was a chance Alberta and Saskatchewan would turn into a state because I always think that there's a chance that Alberta and Saskatchewan could separate. And I don't think that it makes economical sense for Alberta or Saskatchewan to be independent if they had the opportunity to be a state.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're going to be sort of completely dependent on the America for
and Canada
and trade. At least if you ponied up to the states, you start exporting your energy en masse.
Yeah,
and be a rich state with no tax and things like this.
Yeah,
as opposed to a province that is subsidizing the eastern side of Canada to the extent that keeps us all poor. That being said, I think it was probably always part of the plan. That is the other thing. That was a good point from Rob. I don't think the king really has much of a choice in his holdings anymore, but this is the point that it's funny to see all these guys arguing about the Canadian sovereignty on Twitter when literally the fucking one thing that could actually happen right now is that there's one person that could decide that we just joined Canada, technically, and that would be the king. King Charles has, and everyone says, it's ceremonial and blah, 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 blah. But in the fucking Canadian Constitution, the fucking avenue is there for the king to use the Governor General to dissolve our parliament or dismiss any prime minister at any time. And all of our laws, before they can come laws, we need to have royal assent.
That's pretty crazy, right?
Blessing by the Governor General, who's appointed by the Prime Minister, but ceremonially or symbolically work for the King of fucking England. Yeah.
And then, of course, you have people like this here. So Andrea Lynn saying, if you're wondering why there's talk of bringing Canada and Greenland, here's your answer. Trump was installed to, this is the opposite view, obviously, to usher in the New World Order and get conservatives to accept it. And it's working. And here's like a picture from the Club of Rome Committee of 300. This group was organized in 1968 by the Morgenthau Group for the purpose of accelerating the plans to have the New World Order in place by the year 2000. In 76, the United States Associated of the Club of Rome was formed for the purpose of shutting down the U.S. economy gradually. So, here's the plan. And so here's what the map looks like. Like, I hate how they have these things above Mexico. Like, why wouldn't you just include Mexico in there? That whole Gulf. So they've got, South America and Mexico joined, but then all of the rest of North America is one. And then it looks like the Scandinavia, the UK, and at least Western Europe there. And I think Turkey's in there, it looks like, for some reason. Then Northern Africa, middle of Africa, Australia, and Southern Africa. And then India and the East Asia, and then China and Russia. So those are your 10 big things. So I don't even really want to talk about my opinions on this right now. It's so crazy, dude. So here, this is why my title was what I put it at.
What if the United States, Mexico, and Canada became one country? If all three nations joined together to form a single country, they could call it COM, or the United Nations of COM, and it would instantly become the most powerful country in the world. Economically, this union would dominate with a GDP of over $28 trillion, making it the richest country on Earth. The U.S.'s $25 trillion economy would lead, boosted by Canada's energy resources and Mexico's manufacturing strength. Geographically, this supranation would span 21.66 million square kilometers, overtaking Russia as the largest country and nearly doubling Europe's size. From Canada's icy Arctic to Mexico's sunny beaches, it would feature unmatched diversity. The population would soar to nearly 500 million, ranking as the third most populous country behind only India and China. And with a defense budget of over $900 billion and 1.7 million active troops, it would command the world's most advanced and powerful military. So, would you want the U.S. to form COM and reshape the world? What if the United States, Mexico, and Canada became one country? If all three...
So what do you think?
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he'll have no trouble picking up Greenland and the other one, Panama.
Yeah.
Canada's going to take a little longer. I think it's really going to be more of a European Union sort of thing.
Well, yeah, that would suck, to be honest. I mean, I would kind of want it. I don't want to talk about my feelings about it right yet.
I mean, you'd have the ability to move there still. I think they need to get us on a common currency thing. Here's the thing: we're kind of gonna at some point end up having to, I'm of the mind that it was always inevitable we were gonna end up sucking holing up to the Americans in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And that when they start fighting with China, is going to become the new China, and that's where I don't know that they'd ever want to make it a state, part of the states, because then they get to, you have subject to all these silly laws that we have in Canada and the States, where we've got to follow this or follow that, regulations and minimum wages and all that sort of stuff. So I think they want to keep Mexico pretty third worldy, but they want our shit. They want our gold and they want the Arctic. Because the thing about both of it is, I think what it all boils down to at the end of the day is you look at Panama, southern trade route, and the Greenland and Canada are the northern trade route.
Yeah, I mean, and I think also, like you've talked about before, is North America being just a protectable sort of unit, right? Like, and part of me sympathizes on that. Like, let's just have North America and we'll fuck the rest of the world. We'll just do what we need to do here. Worry about that. Be self-sufficient. Like there's something like, to me, positive about that. And I mean, Canada is broken completely. Like I don't know if people understand, or people seem to be all of a sudden. I was going to
say, in your graphic, it's like 1 and 2. So Canada and the U.S. had to join for one. Well, someone's always getting the upper hand in that union. You know what I mean? Even suck, one always sucks more. And, this one just happens to suck more right now.
Here's like just some reality about Canada right now. I mean, I haven't fact checked this, but Canada has the housing prices of New York average 450,000 US. The wages of Mississippi average 39,500 US a year. Economy of Alabama, real GDP 47,000 per person, and taxes higher than all 50 states. I mean, that's kind of like my feeling about it. But let's hear what your buddy has to say about it. This is before New Year's, so just this is like a week and a bit old, but like just to give people some context of what was happening before all this viral stuff at the beginning of the year.
All the shit at the fan today, that new jobless numbers came out. The unemployment rate came out today in Canada. We are so fucked. Like, fuck. Jump to 6.8. Big jump. Ontario, holy shit. 7.6 unemployment in Ontario. That's fucking terrible.
He swears like
terrible.
You, eh?
Youth unemployment, almost 14%. Yeah, the young people are fucked. They're just fucked. Everything I talked about, the economy getting shittier, yeah, it's getting shittier day by day by day. The only good places, only good Quebec, Alberta, okay, they're doing okay. There was job creation in those provinces.
Darren, Alberta's doing okay. You're right.
Every place
Oh,
else.
we're about to go fucking crazy, dude. I can feel it. My phone's starting to just go a little crazier. I'm starting to plan for expansion already and what that's going to look like and how, if it's even handleable in the fucking new Atlas Shrugged world we live in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that honestly 10 years ago we didn't even consider when we were ramping up for a boom.
Right.
Like, okay, as the work comes in, we'll hire guys. And now it's like, how many guys are actually hireable? We have a hard top on how much work we can take on.
Right.
This is fucked. This is not good. This is going to get worse. It's going to keep going up in Ontario. It's like 20,000 manufacturing jobs, just manufacturing. Construction's going just complete hell in a handbasket. But manufacturing, the backbone of Ontario, no, going bad. Finance, banks had all their announcements last week. Yeah, not fucking good. Like it's like there's going to be more layoffs at banks. There's going to be continued hiring freezes at banks. It's folks, it is not fucking good. Okay, be clear, not good. So what does that mean? Only silver lining to this shitty economy that's developing? Mortgage rates will come down.
And this guy's saying since developing, he's like the shitty economy that's developing. Well, it's been since 2020 and COVID. I mean, we haven't recovered from that.
Canada down. It'll keep going down next year. Looks like fixed mortgage rates might be coming down again. Coming. We'll have to watch it more closely. But definitely variable rate mortgages, and they're coming right down. You're going to see variable rates in the 3% range soon, like middle of next year. The only growth in this country in jobs in the last 3 years has been the public sector, has been government's hiring. That's it. And if we think we could actually run a country with just people being hired in the government sector, that is completely and utterly not going to work. Like, just not. Everybody put that idea out of their mind. The government's just going to hire their way out of all unemployment. That's could be communism, right? I mean, like, everybody works for the government. Yeah. Look, be careful, be thoughtful. Only good news is about mortgages, but, hold on to your job. Think about cutting expenses.
Okay, I kept wanting to cut him off, but he was just on a roll there.
Cut him off, motherfucker. Shut the fuck up.
Next, we have this clip from the Jimmy Dore Show with guest Whitney Webb.
How they get people believing all of this. And you've been speaking about this a lot. Since the attacks on New Year's Eve, we've seen a lot of things that look like transparent narrative management. They literally sent a reporter into the apartment of an alleged terrorist with chemicals sitting on the table and open Qurans. It was just, it was about as convincing as the CNN video in
where she sniffs the
Syria.
backpack with sarin gas. Yep.
Yeah,
That's exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah.
It was so stage managed. It was absurd. It was almost insulting. It felt like they're just not even trying anymore. So Now, not long before this, you have Sean Ryan, who's former Navy SEAL, former CIA contractor. Now he's out there in the independent media. And he went on Rogan, this is back in September, and he pitched that the open borders, Al-Qaeda is coming over the borders. And then he suggests that the Democrats are just doing it because they want the voters, which Joe, to his credit, saw something a little more sinister. So we're just going to look at the end of this clip.
I think it's by design, from the government, but I think that I think that the government is more incompetent than it's ever been before. And I think they have one common goal, and that I think the goal is voting. They want them to vote, but I don't think they're competent enough to realize the death and destruction and the other repercussions that we're going to face by keeping that border open. Because they don't have anybody, that they don't have anybody with any experience that they don't have any solid intelligence stuff going on that's telling them like, hey, this is what's going to happen. It's all agenda driven.
Jesus Christ.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. It does make sense that all they care about is voting, is get the people in, don't worry about the consequences. But the more insidious conspiracy would be that they want unrest, because it gives them an opportunity to clamp down on rights.
I mean, shit, though. Unrest.
He pushes right back on that.
They got really good at unrest. You know what I mean? In 2020, right? All through, or even before 2020. Up to that election. So I don't think they need to import terrorism.
Yeah, but it's a different kind of unrest. The kind of unrest that you get from people blowing up Target is very different than the kind of unrest you get from a legitimate terror attack.
Yeah.
All right. So Joe's almost there, which he doesn't seem to like. He really does not want to go in that direction. So you responded to this clip. You said, please remember the history of the last 25 years and recognize this for what it is. Repackaged neocon slop brought to you by former spooks to get you to surrender your remaining freedoms in the name of fighting the war on domestic terror with consent manufactured via an American Gladio-style op using the same fucking CIA boogeymen as 2001 to 2003. All right, and lo and behold, Ryan winds up being the person who is the recipient of the Tesla bombers manifesto, and then he does this whole theatrical thing. I'm disappearing for a few days with my family because I don't know what's going to happen to me after I release this. So, but this person
cinema.
He's presenting himself as this independent truth teller. He's on the premier platform that codes that way, right? As the independent media fighting back against the establishment. Do we actually have an independent media? How much of it is, I assume you believe he's working for the intelligence agency, Sean Ryan, as do I. How much of the independent media space do you see as really being part of that op?
So I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. Obviously, there's people that are arguably the biggest names. I think it's quite obvious that a lot of those people get sought out and bought out or willingly collaborate, or have people that once they get big enough handle their production and their shows, their guest management, and then the person that books the guest could be the spook, and then line them up with all these people that feed them stuff. I mean, it's really hard to know because I don't have any insight to those people, including Sean Ryan, to know exactly what category he would fit in. But obviously, the history of being a former CIA contractor and having active intelligence people on and just taking whatever they say as if it's absolute reality without asking for evidence or documents or anything, sort of treating all of these, currently on the payroll people, as whistleblowers without any sort of leaks or actual documentation. I think it's, that I don't think that's necessarily the right way to do that kind of reporting personally. Obviously, I'm being very nice. But I think the clip you showed is different from the one I was commenting on. The one I was commenting on is where in that same Rogan interview, he parrots this narrative that a guest on his show gave him named Sarah Adams, who's a former CIA targeting officer. Hard to know if it's really former, though, with some of these people. Right, and she was basically echoing this narrative that because of the porous southern border, which again is not exclusive to the Biden administration, it's not like Trump hermetically sealed the border when he was in office, and you have several decades of this happening, whether it's Republican or Democrat. But the porous border has allowed Al-Qaeda operatives to enter the U.S. and establish sleeper cells because they hate us for our freedom, guys. Remember that and how real that was? Yeah. So, that's very frustrating to me because anyone who has really done their research about the national security state or foreign wars should know that Al-Qaeda is 100% a creation of intelligence services, particularly the U.S., but I would argue also with the involvement of Israel and probably the United Kingdom as well, the great triumvirate of intelligence fuckery. I think that particular narrative that's being talked about very much right now, how convenient is that?
Yes.
Because I have been writing for a very long time about the efforts to implement, after the war on terror, going back to the Bush era neocons, the plans on the books were also for a war on domestic terror. And every administration, Trump included, have expanded that infrastructure significantly. Every single administration since 9/11. Okay. And it's very troubling. So if you look at the Biden administration's expansion of it and how they define domestic terrorist, it includes people who oppose government overreach, people who are opposed to any form of capitalism, right? So it could be crony capitalism, it could be stakeholder capitalism. I mean, it could be any kind of, whatever they choose to define as capitalism. You don't like the current economic system, you can be considered a domestic terrorist, or you don't like a government policy you deem to be overreach. It's very vaguely defined what gets you on the naughty list. And during the previous Trump administration, basically the infrastructure for this was expanded to include what really ultimately comes down to pre-crime, but what they like to call predictive policing. And William Barr, when he was Attorney General, made this official policy of the U.S. government. And this was not reversed by Biden, and there's no indication that the incoming Trump administration plans to revert this, even though apparently they hate Bill Barr now. But he's a career CIA mop-up man, so I really doubt that. He kind of helped clean up the Epstein mess for people, didn't he? So, the war on domestic terror, to manufacture consent for that, you have to have domestic terror, just like the war on foreign terror necessitated some sort of attack to get us to go abroad. That was the push from that. So if you have a variety of domestic attacks, which is why I say a Gladio style thing, Operation Gladio, and I'm not an expert on it, so I'm going to give just a very brief overview.
Yeah, just explain that briefly for anyone who doesn't know what that was.
Yeah, so this was basically the CIA going to Europe and being like, we don't want the European governments or the Europeans to elect governments that we deem as sympathetic to the communists, i.e. Russia or whatever. And so we're going to stage terror attacks that we blame on leftist groups or groups adjacent to the political parties we don't want to win, and essentially use that to push Europeans to the right. And basically have them be, European governments be democratically elected, but manipulated into electing one certain party or one certain side of the political spectrum through terror, essentially, which is obviously very bad. And the intelligence services in Europe actually use these terror attacks as justification for something they never actually did, but they wanted to bring Operation Condor, then ongoing in South America, basically planned and run by the CIA, and then executed, of course, by the governments, the military dictatorships in South America under their control. They wanted to import that to Europe as a way to stop the terror attacks that these intelligence services were themselves creating, right? So
basically saying people are being manipulated into essentially voting for fascism. Right.
Well, that was essentially what Operation Gladio was. And it wasn't just the CIA, it was organized crime. It was also the Vatican. And you had these different groups coming together and contributing to that in specific ways. And you also had the involvement of the P2 Lodge in Italy, which is a very interesting rabbit hole for those interested in going down that. So basically a weird Freemason shadow government.
Well, yeah,
in
this is fucked, man.
All right, while we're down the rabbit hole, last time we were here, we had Tom O'Neill on, who wrote Chaos. And in Chaos, one of his revelations is he was doing research at the UCLA library, and he found the MK Ultra files from Gottlieb, from Jolly, from Jolly West. And one of the things he found was in their correspondence, I think this was West, saying that we have successfully learned how to erase memories. These experiments have been a success. Now, the story we always hear about MK Ultra is it was a crazy attempt to create Manchurian candidates that failed. But O'Neill's research strongly suggests it actually succeeded, and they just kept that very quiet, that they actually figured out how to do these things. When you look going back to Oswald, Timothy McVeigh, and now this most recently, where you have both of these alleged attackers from the same army base, do you think there's an MK Ultra element in these attacks?
Well, it's hard to say, but I think it's absolutely a certainty that if the CIA said, oh, we ended that program, that's not true. If it's something that helps entrench, their power and their dominance, and by the CIA, I don't necessarily just mean the agency. I mean, like, where they come from. The CIA is a product really of Wall Street and the corporations that are related. It was Wall Street lawyers.
But it was Wall Street lawyers and bankers who started the CIA.
Yeah, so there's a huge overlap between CIA and the private sector, and now arguably the CIA has moved much more into the private sector, specifically with the advent of Silicon Valley. If you look into how many of those companies were started either like as CIA projects or by people with CIA ties or any NQTEL or anything like that, it's all pretty telling. But ultimately, what I'm trying to get, as far as the MK Ultra thing, it's very possible. The whole idea that they were trying to use torture and trauma to induce people into certain behaviors seems very likely that continues. And what better place to do that at something like a military base, especially one that's known for egregious sexual assaults, and I believe even murder of female soldiers and stuff like that were unsolved. Obviously there's violence happening there. And would that be directed? Obviously if it happened in the past, there's sort of this what I would call a misconception that the naughty things the CIA did in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and then that were outed during the Church Committee, the idea that that stopped anything, even though there was no accountability. Congress was totally stonewalled by the CIA, actually by William Barr, who was a lawyer for the CIA at the time. That was his main job at the time. Funny how these people pop up time and again. And, it doesn't mean they stopped. There's no proof they stopped. Congress just stopped investigating. And obviously it makes sense that there was a lot of pressure applied to our political system to stop that. And, but again, unfortunately, we have to be in the realm of speculation here, because it's not like any sort of evidence that would ultimately lead us to conclusively know that will ever be released to the public. So we're sort of stuck speculating, but we know that the lack of accountability of the CIA and the fact that they continue to do terrible things like they did decades ago, that all of this persists, and that the CIA definitely does regularly engage in torture, of people without due process and whatever. Would they use that to try and control people? And would they do it on our own soldiers? They experiment on U.S. soldiers all the time. People should look into these military, installations in the U.S. that are part of this Defense Innovation Unit and all this, the sort of merging again of Silicon Valley and the military, trying to make these transhumanist soldiers and put chips in soldiers' brains so they can control drone swarms with their minds and like all the weird genetic engineering stuff. They're doing all of this to soldiers right now. So why wouldn't they And that's like admitted. It's not like the mainstream media like reports on it, but if you look for it, it's there, you know. So why wouldn't they, you know, try mind control by different means, or even use those same means that allow them to control drone swarms with their brains, use that to manipulate soldiers in a different direction. I mean, they're about to be commercialized, the brain chips. So why wouldn't, you know, they covertly use them on people?
So now
we don't know.
You've spoken a lot about how many people have reversed themselves on civil liberties, on their beliefs about the FBI. I think you've seen that really, really in sharp relief since the election. I did a whole segment about Mark Andreessen doing this whole round of calling everything that restrains.
He's Dr. Robotnik without the mustache.
He's talking about everything that restrains him is woke. So you saw this. I went to the Dissident Dialogues, which was like this IDW conference in May. And it was very eye-opening for me because it was basically pairing the anti-woke stuff, you know, DEI and trans with, and you know, Uyghur labor might be in your supply chain. So it was this very Jake Sullivan State Department kind of foreign policy paired with ginning up outrage about cultural issues. And we saw this deployed immediately after New Year's Eve. You have End Wokeness immediately, this big account in that space. New York City, just a few hours after a jihadist killed 15 in New Orleans. Now, this rally had been planned in advance, had nothing to do with ISIS or anything like that. But immediately they frame it as if this was to celebrate this attack in New Orleans.
I mean, after 9/11, they took an old film of Palestinians being handed candy by some like NGO and said that was Palestinians celebrating 9/11. You know, this is an old trope.
Right. But what's new about that, although I guess this isn't really new, you know, Nixon and Agnew presented themselves as fighting against the establishment in some way. So you wrote this, which I think sums it up pretty well, and I'd like you to elaborate on it. Some of the same prominent people who rightly have been pointing out that the FBI and CIA are deeply corrupt, which they obviously are now saying we should believe those agencies about the motives and identities of those behind the recent attacks, and also believe FBI, CIA people that the U.S. is now infiltrated and invested with al-Qaeda operatives poised to bring chaos to the U.S. in 2025. Even more odd, some of these people used to rant for hours about how al-Qaeda and ISIS were creations of the U.S. government, either directly or indirectly. Funny how narrative management works. Al-Qaeda is definitely a U.S. creation, and fear over current and or future attacks will be used to market a complete techno-tyranny takeover. You'll be told the digital ID, digital surveillance money, and Palantir big data pre-crime algos are the only ways to stop the terror attacks, and it will be disturbing to see how many fall for the ruse. Don't give in to the fear and don't consent. Digital ID and many of these technologies will only stick if you voluntarily comply and adopt them. So that's a pretty terrifying future that you're describing. You're giving some prescription for how to avoid it, but yes.
I'm not trying to be terrifying. I'm trying to be realistic of the problems that can arise when you give your brain in a bag over to intelligence-linked billionaires and CIA frontmen, and where they plan overtly to take us. So, you know, arguably there is this effort, and we saw it during COVID, for all of these quote-unquote solutions to be rolled out that had nothing to do with viral infections. Like, you know, and arguably, you know, things like vaccine passports had nothing to do with whether you were, you know, it wasn't really based on public health policy. It was arguably a trial run for digital ID infrastructure, which is meant to be applied to health, among other things. And then things like the pre-crime algorithms of Palantir have been in testing for a long time. Predictive policing specifically, mainly in minority dominant communities in New Orleans and Los Angeles. very biased, very messed up algorithms, but they were also used to distribute, vaccines during the COVID era and decided which communities need the most, and then pushed those vaccines to the same minorities that they have targeted previously through predictive policing and ICE and things like that. Digital IDs, are advancing rapidly, including from people that claim to be against vaccine passports and all this stuff during COVID, like Ron DeSantis, for example. Florida is advancing very quickly to the digital driver's license world, the Florida Smart ID card, and all of this. And so arguably really the only difference is the sales pitch at this point. So, I've argued for, well over a year now that they saw resistance to it the way it was being pitched during the COVID era. And so because ultimately we are governed and ruled by a public-private partnership, they move it out of the public sector and more into the private sector, left to right. It's the same type of ping pong. And so ultimately, now the sales pitch is going to be meant to appeal to the demographic that complained the most about that, right-leaning Americans, give them a sales pitch that they're more likely to swallow. So that would be, this is the solution to crime, rampant crime. This is the solution to illegal immigration. And what better way to push that even further on over than arguing, having this sort of milieu of all these ISIS, Al-Qaeda terror attacks, blame that on the border and be like, well, we need to know who everyone is that's coming in or out, which is already a policy Trump campaigned on this cycle, the very precise biometric entry-exit tracking system, he called it. And that's, essentially a recipe for a digital ID, not just for the border, but all ports of entry. And TSA has been moving in this direction for some time, and that clear private sector equivalent, in airport security has been there to sort of normalize the whole biometric stuff. And it's really ultimately part of this global plan that's part of Interpol, that every country in the world has basically agreed to the implementation of what Interpol calls the global policing goals, which a lot of people, I would recommend you should read about those. They're rather interesting. And, if they keep pushing this narrative enough about Al-Qaeda, for example, we need to go after terror financing. Well, now we need visibility into every dollar spent everywhere in the country. And you can then sell, a digital cashless surveillable, programmable even society. And, with pre-crime, the ultimate goal of total information awareness, the DARPA program that Palantir repackaged as a private sector thing, the goal of that was to stop terror attacks before it happened. But then they also wanted to apply that to stop pandemics before they happen. There was this multi-tier goal, you could argue, and the anthrax attacks right after 9/11 were all part of this. Actually, it was intended with the anthrax attacks to have multiple bioterror events happen after that. But lo and behold, the anthrax was traced back to a U.S. military before they could convince everyone that it had actually come from Iraq. And so that operation kind of got folded, but you can see that that was ultimately the plan. And so if this narrative is sort of about Al-Qaeda sleeper cells being activated or whatever, is sort of predictive programming for some sort of American Gladio thing, which I certainly hope it is not. But if it is, the goal is to have people so scared and so freaked out and feel so insecure that they'll be willing to trade their remaining liberties and freedom for that. And ultimately, a lot of these things, particularly digital ID, are really the linchpin in leading us into this digital transformation era that has a lot of names, that some of them turn people off, like the Great Reset and whatever. But ultimately, the goal is to lead people into this fourth industrial revolution, which is basically sort of this post-human future where AI basically runs everything and the tech overlords rule over us. And they're trying to convince a lot of people right now that they will be benevolent overlords, and they're so cool, and they're anti-woke, like you pointed out earlier. It's kind of funny, like Elon Musk basically pisses off a huge amount of what he has cultivated as his base, Trump's base basically, and then is like, well, I'll just come back and make memes and talk about how I'm going to reach level 80 in the Path of Exile video game. And, maybe tomorrow I'll tweet about how Disney turned a beloved character into a different race, and then they'll be back in my corner again. I mean, it's very easy for these people to play you, and they've been doing it for years. but they have. Yeah.
I don't know how much you've been online the last couple of days, but no sooner did they start to lose the love of the peasants, they started really asking questions about these New Year's Eve attacks and how weird a lot of the surrounding incidents, like the reporter walking through the apartment were. And all of a sudden, this, and I'm not saying the story is not true, but anyone who really looks into these kinds of things knows about these grooming gangs in England. This is This is not a new story.
Right.
All of a sudden, in the last 24 hours, oh my God, this is what we need to be obsessed with right now. And
nobody's going to give me shit for
Elon has
going
like
after
10
rape
tweets
gangs,
about
so I may
this
as well
today.
do that. Yeah, right. Nobody's going to give me shit for that, right? That's something.
Right.
Well,
who's going to come at me for that?
What about the pedo grooming gang that was run by Israel in the U.S.?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, they're not mentioning that.
No,
but I
they
mean,
won't.
so it sounds like the upshot here is that they're basically 10 steps ahead of the public, and the public has no idea whatsoever, right? Because the other thing, and this is what always, I mean, you're a wealth of knowledge on this. I'm obviously not, but intuitively, I just could not help but recoil when people said in the run up to the presidential vote, and I didn't vote for either of the major candidates, so I'm not here to advocate for one or the other or really compare them. But the idea that we had to elect Trump to save the country just seemed absurd on its face. It seemed absolutely absurd because of this. Because now you have, intuitively, you could just sense the merger of not only capital with the state, but tech capital with the state. I mean, and to go back to what we talked to at the beginning of the interview, a streamlined government, not only is it not necessarily a smaller government, it can very easily become a larger government.
And less efficient if the algorithms don't work.
Well, that too, but also like once that infrastructure is there, let's say the pendulum swings and someone who wants to greatly expand government power, who says that outright, the tools are all there for them to do that.
There, indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Come see us on tour in Los Angeles, Honolulu, Dallas, Texas, Baltimore, Atlantic City, Cohoes, New York, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, and only there.
Now we take a look at this clip from the Indie News Network with Reef and Indy.
Who are these people?
This doctor in northern Gaza, Dr. Hussam Abu Safia, that is clearly something that's happening where the international community is standing up, speaking out, and saying there's something wrong here. I mean, not like all of everything that's happened in Gaza isn't something wrong here, but this is beyond the pale. I mean, they've already destroyed the entire healthcare system effectively in Gaza. They were in one of the final, makeshift hospitals that was operating is Dr. Hussam Abu Safia. All right. A doctor who performed his son's funeral prayer and then returned to care for his patients. It is our duty to not forget him. Totally agree. All right. You sent me a video from Eva Bartlett that she had put up about him, that he is a director of Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza, recently arrested by the Israeli invading forces. And we'll show the picture in the video. A man of great humanity. Okay, his colleague implores the world to stand with Dr. Hussam, who says he stayed with them even when the Israelis were yelling at him. He refused to leave his staff, didn't do so willingly, but by force. Then they show him like getting in the tank, or you see that on another video.
حسام الصفية دفنوه من مدرسة الطفولة بعد أن بقي معنا ولن يخرج، مع أنه قالوا له يعني اخرج أنت حر، قالوا ما بترك الطاقم الطبي، أخذنا وجينا نطلع بالليل، بعدين زعقوا عليه واعتقلوه. رجل إنسانية نناشد كل العالم كل مؤسسات حقوق الإنسان بأن يقفوا بجانب الدكتور حسام أبو صفية الرجل العظيم الرجل الذي زرع بنا وفي قلوبنا الصبر لكي نصبر في شمالنا الصامت. والله ما خرجنا من شمالنا إلا غصبا، لكينا دم على أبواب مستشفى شمال عدوان حينما خرجنا غصبا من قبل جيش الاحتلال. حسام أبو صفية
I mean, so you had this happen. He fought an army alone. This is now becoming a very famous picture.
What a crazy image, dude.
Of him staring down.
I think Crime did did a depiction of that. That was pretty good.
There's several. I saw several works of art that were depicting that. So that's Eva's take on it. Then we have Sanaa Saeed, who was formerly of AJ Plus, now independent. Follow her all over. She's on Substack. She's on Twitter. She's on Instagram primarily. Sanaa Face. They sent Dr. Hossam Abu Safia to stay Taman, where they raped Dr. Adnan Albursh to death. This was this was on New Year's Eve. That's where we have video footage of IDF soldiers raping a Palestinian man, leading to the Israeli riots and the Knesset debates over the right to rape Palestinians, which is insane. That's where they also, female IDF soldiers, rape Palestinian men. It's a torture camp. We saw him plead to the world for 84 days to protect his besieged hospital and patients. We saw him walk up to an Israeli tank, try to plead again for his patients, get arrested, and be sent to a torture camp. Yes, Palestinian healthcare workers are brave, but what has forced them to be brave is what should force us to hang our heads in shame. Yeah, absolutely. And then we even have Sharon Zhang. Again, we're only going to the best of the best here, who reported the day before that they had seen him there and that he was beaten until his eye was bleeding. All right, again, Sharon Zhang over at Truth Out. They abducted and carried out a massacre in the hospital last week. I believe after they took him, they set the building on fire, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, something like that.
A camp likened to Guantanamo Bay for Israeli soldiers, horrific treatment of detainees there. Without charges. They'd either seen and recognized him or heard his name being read out.
Probably
That's
more
CNN.
Abu Ghraib.
Yep. Not a fun story, obviously. All right, and the Israeli military has killed at least 60 Palestinian detainees in their custody. I think it's a lot more than 60. Okay, they treated them really badly, especially the doctors. Now, I thought had a Geneva Convention that countries are supposed to follow. Apparently, that's no longer a thing. Right?
No. Not for Israel.
Right. Israeli forces, of course, claimed without evidence that he was being held over suspicions that he's a member of Hamas. Why? Because he's a doctor who reports to the Hamas to the Gaza Health Ministry, which is run by Hamas. Everybody is Hamas. The UN is Hamas. We are Hamas. Everybody is Hamas. Same excuse used for nearly every Palestinian detainee. It's garbage. It's infuriating. It's a gaslight and a half.
What happens when they think the United States is full of Hamas? You know?
Well,
will they send their jackboots here too?
No, they don't need to, because they'll send Lavender AI with Where's Daddy, and they'll just drop bombs on people's houses. They'll start doing it, and Trump's not going to stop them.
How are those drones doing in New Jersey? You doing all right?
How about that? They seem to drop off the radar, huh?
Oh, apparently.
All right. Images circulating online showed him walking toward the Israeli tanks in the wreckage of Israel's assault around Kamal Adwan. It was formerly the last operational hospital in northern Gaza. Basically, there are no, and they said that basically anyone that moves in northern Gaza now is shot and murdered. And that everyone there is, yeah, guilty automatically. Like, really? So we also saw somebody from Amnesty International say something, but I wanted to point this out. And this was the reason really why I brought this whole story is not, it brings people together while this is awful and horrible. This doctor, Yipeng Ji, who was a family doctor in Ottawa, Canada, who had flown to Gaza, okay, I believe, but at the beginning of this month, I heard from Dr. Hussam Abu Safia calling in from Gaza during a Doc Stop Genocide meeting. He spoke about the conditions in northern Gaza and the medical cases he and his team were seeing at Kamal Adwan Hospital, including witnessing and experiencing the targeted and deliberate attacks on civilians and many healthcare workers. So he put this picture up with the hashtag, and what it started was a movement of healthcare workers doing this. All right. So Sarah Wilkinson, famously detained by UK under Section 12. Yep. All right. She compiled a 2-minute video of more healthcare workers doing this. Well, let me just back this down so you can see it all. Scroll up. Healthcare staff across the world call for the immediate release of Kamal Adwan Hospital Chief Dr. Hussam Abu Safia. And let's play this.
Release Dr. Hussam! 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 Release Dr. Hussam now! 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 Release Dr. Hussam now!
Like, this is just not a few people.
Dr. Hussam now!
Is my point. That this many people who work in healthcare are doing this?
Dr. Hussam now!
Are you even aware?
Dr. Hussam now! Doctors are not a target! Doctors are not a target!
Neither are journalists, but doctors.
Doctors are not a target!
Especially, yep.
Doctors are not a target! Doctors are not a target! Doctors are not a target! Healthcare is not a target! Healthcare is... Stop torturing doctors! Stop torturing nurses! Release Dr. Hussam!
No, Dr. Nick, he is not. To my knowledge, at least.
Release Dr. Hussam! Release Dr. Hussam! Release Dr. Hussam! Release Dr. Hussam!
Positivity, Elon. Go fuck yourself.
What is that? What was that in Kill Bill, the crazy 88s? See the crazy 38s, bro. Don't worry about it.
That's right.
You know?
Not enough people are talking about it. I'm glad we are, at least. We're going to talk about this. All right. Here's another of the same 2-minute video. Okay. I didn't realize it was the same one. Terrible. Here's a few of the actual, the people that were in that video. Here's Dr. Jem Newman, family medical resident. I call for the immediate release of Dr. Hussam Abu Safia and his colleagues. He was abducted. Calling for the protection of hospitals and medical workers in Gaza and end to the genocide. And this is just
Or
yeah.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Not a target. Pick from nearly 10 years ago when America bombed Kunduz MSF hospital, killing 42 patients, staff, and visitors. But remember, this happened October 7th. This started then, right, everyone? Mm-hmm.
yeah, dude.
Mary Kostakidis, famous Australian independent journalist and friend of, she's a Consortium News board member. Amnesty sounds the alarm as IDF denies arresting him, saying he's been disappeared.
Of course.
Right? So, and that was the other thing that I wanted to mention was that the IDF, again, starting 3 days ago, denied that they had him at all in custody. Despite clear documentation of his arrest, the Army officially informed us today that it has no indication of the arrest or detention of the director of Kamal Adwan Hospital. He just disappeared like a fart in the wind. This dude literally went back to work after they didn't take him.
Wasn't me.
And the garbage that's been narrative that's been coming out of course, again, Hamas, out of the
Hamas.
The Israeli side is, well, he was a terrorist. He was helping the terrorists. Well, by fixing up the sick babies, he was a terrorist.
Terror. Terrorism. Terror. Terrorist. Terror organization, terrorist attacks. Terrorism. Terrorist network, terrorist attacks. Terrorist group. Terrorists. Terrorist. Terror. Terrorist.
Thanks,
Instruments of
Stubbs.
terror.
Thanks,
Terror
Stubbs.
network. Terror cells. Terrorists. Terrorizing terror and murder.
They can go fuck
Terrorizing terror.
The last thing for this segment that I wanted to bring was a poem that I saw the other day by V. McKenna. And it's titled "They Shoot Horses, Don't They?" They're shooting horses
in the Gaza Strip. They're shooting anything that moves at all. They shoot until they have an empty clip and then reload their guns and shoot a wall. They're shooting little kids right in the head, even cripples limping with a crutch. They're wasting ammo on the living dead and laying waste to everything they touch. They're shooting ghosts. They even shoot their own, those hostages they claim to care about. They film their crimes by shooting with a phone, the spectacle of what they're wiping out. Wondering, is this all really true? Do they shoot horses? Yes, of course they do.
Yeah. They of course they do, and we've seen that too. We've seen those videos of them of the horse literally just collapsing.
Yeah.
Like attached to a wagon
Really?
and then down to yeah. Sorry for the heaviness, everyone, but not enough people are still talking about this. You know, it's still happening.
Next, let's take a look at this week's New World next week with James Corbett and James Evan Pilato.
Happy New Year, and welcome back to New World Next Week. I'm James Corbett of CorbettReport.com.
And I am James Evan Pilato of MediaMonarchy.com. A Happy New Year to you from myself as well. He gave us quite a bit of additional information, so I appreciate his help on that. We have got that story, plus Public Domain Day 2025. But first, Trudeau resigns, suspends democracy in Canada. It's like a weird, like, hostage crisis, James. Justin Trudeau announced he's suspending democracy in Canada with his replacement going to be chosen by Liberal Party apparatchiks. Amid widespread discontent, a winter of discontent, if you will, the Prime Minister's announced his delayed resignation, triggering a leadership contest within the Liberal Party to find a successor. His announcement comes 8 months before the next scheduled federal election, where public opinion polls suggest the Liberals are on track to suffer a humiliating defeat, if that sounds recently familiar to you in other elections, with the Conservatives currently polling towards a majority government. That old pendulum that swings back and forth. One recent poll indicated the Trudeau Liberals would fall to 4th place in the next election, falling behind the Antifa sympathizing NDP and even Quebec's hated separatist party. Trudeau's resignation comes just after Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland and Housing Minister Sean Fraser became the latest members of his inner circle to leave his cabinet. Freeland quit just hours before Trudeau's announcement. James, I think that's wrong. She quit weeks ago. I think I even joked on here, Twitchy quit, citing their differences in economic policy. So remember to always double check your news for, accuracy. Freeland accused Trudeau of implementing costly political gimmicks, a reference to his recent plan to give $250 for working Canadians in the spring of 2025, a point of contention between the two after he announced it in November, alongside a 2-month GST pause on certain items that started on December 14th. Yeah, watch. Old Twitchy, she'll probably be the new front. Trudeau's 9 years will be remembered for a number of scandals, including being found guilty of breaking ethics laws twice. In 2017, Trudeau accepted a vacation on the private island of Aga Khan, and in 2019, he attempted to influence then Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould, asking her to intervene in the prosecution of SNC-Lavalin. James, I'm not sure about that story. In both instances, Trudeau was found to have violated the Conflict of Interest Act. We could use some of that down here in the States. Maybe again, that'll all come from the intermingling of the two, James, of the 51st state. Additionally, a federal judge ruled last year that Trudeau violated the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms by invoking the Emergencies Act against peaceful protesters in Ottawa who were demonstrating against his scamdemic vaccine mandates. Ironically, at that time, Trudeau was isolating after allegedly contracting COVID-19 after getting allegedly 3 doses, the same vaccines he was coercing Canadians to get through travel and employment bans and on those evil unvaccinated individuals. An additional one from reclaimthenet.org, the authoritarian legacy of Trudeau. And there it is, James.
There it is. And, well, you'll allow me to take a victory lap on this one, because as a Canadian, obviously I have been following the story of the rise of the risible Trudeau to the top of the toilet bowl of Canadian politics ever since it took place. Literally on the night of his selection, I wrote, "And the winner of the Canadian election is ... And I followed that up the very next day with a conversation with Dan Dix of Press for Truth, talking about his unfortunately completely correct documentary, which he had released earlier that year on the Trudeau deception. So we talked about dissecting the Trudeau hype. And so I followed that all through of course, the dark depths of the scamdemic lows of the give, send, gone fiasco and its inevitable follow-up, which I followed up with episode 437 of the Corbett Report podcast on Canada criminalizes dissent, where, hey, guys, it's totally absolutely fine what the Canadian government did, and they're not going to receive anything more than a cursory wrist slap over all of that. And who can forget when Justin Castro walked away with the Dino of Dinos, the fake news story of the year at the 6th Annual Fake News Awards. Fake news story of 2022 was his fringe minority comment talking about the freedom protesters in the Freedom Convoy. So, yes, you will allow Canadians, hopefully, a moment to celebrate. Ding dong, the dictator's gone. Which old dictator? That old dictator. Yay, Canada is free! Question mark? Well, I guess the question is what comes next? And I have a couple of answers along those lines. So James, do you want the good news or the bad news?
Oh, let's do the bad news first, so, we can leave with a good news taste.
I think the bad news utterly destroys the good news. So you know what? Let's do it the other way around. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have given you the choice. Good news. White House. With the House of Commons prorogued, some key Liberal legislation may not pass, or as the countersignal puts it, Trudeau's internet censorship bill and other legislation halted by prorogation. Yes, prorogation is a word that you're going to have to become familiar with in the coming months. Because yes, as you say, democracy suspended. Canada is not really a functioning government right now. So all of those bills, including the Online Harms Act and all of the other Orwellian dystopian nonsense that was being pushed under Trudeau, are now on hold and unlikely to pass unless some sort of miracle occurs. So that's the good news. But the bad news is, who will almost certainly replace him at this point? Who is almost certainly going to be the next Prime Minister of Canada? Not Twitchy. She might replace him as leader of the Liberal Party, but the Liberal Party is about to be decimated in a absolute bloodbath at the next election. So the next Prime Minister of Canada is almost certainly going to be Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. And what does he have to say? Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says Israel hit on Iran would be a gift by the Jewish state to humanity. Oh, that's right. Oh, don't worry, guys. Everything's A-okay and everything's gonna be wonderful as, don't worry, both wings of the bird of prey will always agree on the important war agenda items. Case in point, Canadian politics. So, anyway, there you go. At least one dictator's out the door and undoubtedly many, many, many more behind him.
Isn't it interesting how the three amigos of Canada, the U.S., and Mexico still, as you say, will always remember to agree on the really important parts? I mean, it sounds like the Zionist new president of Mexico, who immediately, recall, rescinded the previous president's ban on GMOs. And I'm sure that's just the start of things.
Or Malay literally converting to Judaism, right? So there you go.
Exactly. The savior of Argentina and the bro of whatever. How similar, though. Again, looking at it on its face isn't as fun as sort of just kind of thinking about the bizarre, more shadows on the wall machinations and the repetition of all of this. How similar, James, to Brandon here in the States suddenly quitting. So here in the state, I mean, we've basically not really had a president for the last while. It just strikes me as a similar sort of parallel of, I'm going to quit in a couple of months. And it leaves it in this sort of weird stasis. That is our first story of 2025 on the triumphant return of the long-running and beloved series New World Next Week. By our calculations, this is episode 576. Hipster Gates to the rescue again, James. See how things flip, and we're giving our heroes and we're giving our villains, and we cheer and we jeer. How the Cybertruck blast revealed the extent of Tesla's sprawling surveillance capabilities. Tesla founder Elon Musk's response to the Cybertruck blast in Las Vegas, which is how we kicked off the new year here in the States with two totally unrelated terror events, reveals the extent to which his vehicles monitor their users' behaviors, and his decision to provide law enforcement information regarding the truck's telemetry before the explosion also differs from the actions taken by the other technology companies during similar situations. I believe that is saying he works with the cops even more than the other hated FANG tech outlets. Musk, or someone with the automaker, remotely unlocked the truck for law enforcement officials and provided them video from charging stations to track down the vehicle's locations prior to the explosion on New Year's Day. This all according to information that then the police released. That incident, which is believed to be intentional and occurred at the entrance of Trump International Hotel, came after a different person used an F-150 to plow through a crowd on New Year's Eve celebration in New Orleans, killing 15. That suspect in the New Year's Eve attack, Shamsud Din Jabbar, was in the military and died during a shootout shortly after the rampage. The man involved in the Cybertruck attack, active duty Army soldier Matthew Livelsberger, allegedly shot and killed himself just prior to the explosion. I do enjoy that a remote weapons expert blew up the car with himself inside it, or he shot himself. So far, investigators have found no links between those two patsy frontmen. Both men rented their respective vehicles through a car renting app, Turo, T-U-R-O, I've not heard of that. Says it's helping investigators as well, according to a press release that they put out. Law enforcement officials have not discovered evidence of a connection between those two attacks. Investigators probing the Cybertruck blast revealed elements of Musk's involvement in the investigation. He gave us quite a bit of additional information in regards to the vehicle was locked due to the nature of the force of the explosion, as well as being able to capture all the video from every Tesla charging station across the country, which I don't know why I wouldn't have thought of that, but that's another reminder. Oh, yeah, it's not just this benevolent actions. He sent that directly to us, so I appreciate his help on that, said Clark County Sheriff Kevin McMahill at a press conference referring to the hipster Gates, the Tesla founder. Musk said something similar on the platform he's ruining as well. You might have known it as Twitter. We have now confirmed that the explosion was caused by very large fireworks and/or a bomb carried in the bed of a rented Cybertruck and is unrelated to the vehicle itself, he wrote, noting explosive devices in the bed of the truck. All vehicle telemetry was positive at the time of the explosion. Analysts say Tesla's ability to track users at every point along a journey is another reminder that consumers no longer own their vehicles. As we have noted many years, it's what they did to your little fondle slabs as well. Took out any ports, any ability for you to have almost literal input. It's just a vending machine that you're supposed to thwack on. Why do you think they want driverless cars? So you can be on your idiot slab 24/7. It demonstrates that manufacturers can now insert themselves into every moment of a person's driving experience while also providing private information to, of course, law enforcement. Recent reports show major car brands don't do much to protect privacy for people who own internet-connected cars. It demonstrates that alt-media hucksters can now insert themselves into every moment of a person's news experience while also providing private information to law enforcement. As Gizmodo writes, if you've got a new car, it's a data privacy nightmare. Bad news, your car is a spy. Every major car brand's new internet-connected devices flunked privacy and security tests conducted, James, by Mozilla. It is hipster Gates and MAGA jabs together at last, James. There it is.
Yeah, that's it. And you know what? Let me connect the dots for people out there who don't understand why you call Musk hipster Gates. There is a very specific and good reason for that. So let's connect those dots. Remember back in July of 2020 when hipster Gates, aka Elon Musk, was bragging about the RNA microfactories that Tesla Inc. was running, i.e. mobile molecule printers to help make the potential COVID-19 vaccine? Remember that? Oh, yeah. Well, I do, and I've got the receipts to prove it, so I'll put it in the show notes for people who need that. So, yeah, there's a reason why it's Hipster Gates, because he is Bill Gates, but the cool, based, meme lord version of Bill Gates. Anyway, having said all of that, yes, cars, newsflash for anyone who has not updated to the 21st century, yes, cars are spying on everything you do, and I hope people will take a look at that Gizmodo article that goes through it in some detail. Key quote here, Mozilla found brands including BMW, Ford, Toyota, Tesla, and Subaru collect data about drivers including race, facial expressions, weight, health information, and where you drive, of course. Some of the cars tested collected data you wouldn't expect your car to know about, including details about sexual activity, race, and immigration status, according to Mozilla. So, yeah, your car is a spy device now, and it is spying on absolutely every aspect of you and your personal life. And I think that that's a problem. And every problem deserves a solution. So, in fact, I am, don't count chickens before they hatch, but I am planning the first edition of Solutions Watch for 2025 to be on this subject of car freedom and what people can do about this problem. So stay tuned for that. But you know what? I suggest maybe we should update the Hipster Gates moniker. I love that moniker. I'm glad you coined it. I've adopted it myself. But I think maybe we should now start calling him Hipster Soros, because maybe that is the way that people can understand it a little bit better. Because imagine if Soros did what Hipster Soros is doing, Musk is doing. Imagine if he was literally paying people to vote for Harris and literally becoming the president on the wings and literally buying out Twitter and personally banning people he dislikes and all of this stuff. Can you imagine the reaction from people? Oh my God, Soros is this unelected leader. What's going on? But Musk does it. It's a cool based meme lord. Anyway, just wake-up call for people who don't understand that or don't understand what is happening to cars these days.
I've got a lot of smart automotive people in the media monarchy community. I was noting on my show this morning, Renaissance rednecks on the internet making how-to videos about how to fix your own car, how to run your own car, what some of the new EPA rules are going to do to cars starting in the 2027 models here in the States. Talking about a lot of that this morning on my morning show. James, again, what are you going to do? Most people are going to, I just, it's one thing to say, well, I'm not going to use Apple. That's a pretty easy decision people could make. But the idea to say, I'm not going to use any more cars, is going to be a lot more difficult. And again, they won't force you to buy the new ones. They're just going to let all the other ones fall apart, and your ability to be able to repair those on your own. And all the places, all the factories, all the mechanics will have their abilities removed to even be able to work on cars from the before times. Mm-hmm. But can we get maybe some good news, James, for our third and final story on this New World Next Week, episode 576, A Farewell to Copyright Arms. These works enter the public domain in 2025. The 1st of January ushers in a new year and a new month and new entries to the list of works in the public domain. While 2024 saw many popular intellectual properties lose copyright protection, as we talked about right here 1 year ago, the initial iteration of Mickey Mouse, 2025 is not without its fair share of noteworthy additions. As of January 1st, several iconic books and characters now freely available for the public to use, to remix, to redo, to do whatever you would like to them. Ernest Hemingway's Farewell to Arms, the original Popeye. List of intellectual property entering the public domain in 2025 works from 1929, that's films and others, and sound recordings from 1924 are now open to all in the U.S. This means all books, all film, all songs, and all art, which is, really open to interpretation, published throughout the roaring 20s are now without copyright protection, making 2025 a significant year for the public domain. And James, just the list, I think, is pretty impressive. A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway. Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner. Seven Dials Mystery by Agatha Christie. The first English version of All Quiet on the Western Front. Rope by Patrick Hamilton, which I double-checked indeed was the inspiration for Alfred Hitchcock's 1948 film. The Carnival Kid, Mickey Mouse's first talking appearance, and the debut of his signature white gloves, along with 11 other Mickey shorts. Now, James, Mickey Mouse being kind of the pinnacle of the big changes within public domain and copyright protection because, as you might know, Disney has very successfully through the decades fought to change these laws and update them so that they could maintain control over, what is their mascot. But they're not. The Coconuts, the Marx Brothers' first feature film. Okay, you should say I've got... He might be cut out of the shot. I do have Orson Welles and Groucho Marx hung up in pictures here in the studio. James the Skeleton Dance, Disney's first silly symphony short directed by Walt Disney and animated by the legendary Ub Iwerks. You've seen it in GIFs before. Blackmail, directed by the aforementioned Hitchcock, his first sound film. Hallelujah by King Vidor, supposedly one of the first all-black casts. And The Character of Popeye by E.C. Seeger as he appeared in Thimble Theater and the comic strip Gobs of Work. I think you get the spinach and all that. Pretty big character out of France, James. We would know him as Tintin, Tintin, as he would be pronounced by his creator, Hergé. That's one of the things I remember from French classes back in high school. Singing in the Rain, An American in Paris, and Tiptoe Through the Tulips. Now, if you'd like to hear me sing a few bars of Tiptoe Through the Tulips, Tiny Tim style, you're going to have to check out my Morning Monarchy from January 6th, my first episode back this year, where I talked about public domain Popeye. As January 1st is Public Domain Day, works from 29, open to all. I'll include some extra articles from Duke University and the folks at archive.org who have a post essentially helping people add these new public domain items to the archive in the correct way. Because again, someone's going to immediately go off and try and use versions of Mickey Mouse that aren't legal, and that'll have to get smacked down. But yeah, archive.org is helping folks out, and that is Public Domain Day 2025. James?
Yes, good. Some good news, and I do appreciate it. And it is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they're already doing a Popeye horror movie. So, of course, the first thing you'll ever do is figure out ways to do this. And yes, I guess it's time to reveal to the public right now, yes, my first novel will be coming out this year. The Sound and the Fury by James Corbett. Why not? Anyway, cool. Yes. And you're right. Of course, we have always referred to the Copyright Extension Acts that always get passed every year, seemingly, as the Mickey Mouse Extension Act, the Mickey Mouse laws, because that was what it was always about. Disney was at the forefront of lobbying for this, but they can't hold it back forever. And hey, at least a century later, we can get some of these works back into the public domain. Now, I think we should start questioning the entire concept of intellectual property, but anyway, a little bit at a time, and I'll take what I can get. So, New World next week, laugh of happiness. Ha ha, yay.
James, and I've often thought if, 4 different life paths away and different timelines, if I were normie James Evan Pilato, having a job at the Library of Congress or the National Archive or anything just filled with media, I probably would have been all right to do kind of work like that. Thankfully for all of us, I make Media Monarchy instead. I also help run NewWorldNextWeek.com. We are allowed to ship to Canada again. See, things are already getting better. Trudeau resigns and we're able to ship to Canada again. I don't know how expedited those shipments will become, but we are able to ship to Canada again, and hopefully those will start up and running again. So we really appreciate your patience. And again, Canada's the one that was dealing with the strike, not here in the States. Yeah, Trudeau quit and boom, the postal strike was over. NewWorldNextWeek.com is your source for some merch and some gear, but also media from Corbett, from the monarchy, that help support our work and keep us fear-free and ad-free. And that's why we don't have to take on weird sponsors that might kind of, bring up what they might call conflicts of interest. James, I also like to remind people and to entice them to come check out my radio stream. What's Media Monarchy? It's basically a radio station. Think of it as a radio station. I do news in the morning and music in the afternoon, and the music and the news are all mixed throughout the day, and I play the exclusive audio of these New World Next Week episodes after my Thursday morning show, so you can come over and check it out. That's around 10 a.m. Mountain Time, until we get rid of daylight savings time, James.
All right. Well, looking forward to conquering 2025 alongside you, and I hope people will check out the monarchy. So, on that note, let's leave it there. James, looking forward to doing it again next week.
Thanks so much, buddy. Take care.
Now, let's take a look at some highlights from AM Wake Up from this week. Make sure to support and share their show to keep this great channel going. Share the show. Share the show. Share the show.
Share the fucking show.
Really? Dude. Okay. There we go. Sorry. All right. Let's see. Lots of places that we can go. Definitely some ridiculous stuff going on. Let's start with Elon and people coming to the rapid realization that Elon Musk is perhaps not the freaking armor-clad savior of free speech that a lot of people had claimed he was. Certainly that Elon Musk himself has claimed that he was. But perhaps he was pulling a fast one on people in order to gain their confidence. And then once that confidence was gained, he would rug pull them and show them who he really was and what he was about. And that's largely taken place over the last couple of weeks for the people who really needed to get it through their skulls. Now, for you guys, you already knew all of that. So what do you actually do on Three Kings Day? Because my girl's Mexican and she didn't even know the answer to that question. At any rate, let's talk about Elon and song. It is Monday after all. We may as well
started off with a laugh and a little bit of levity. Yeah. You gonna actually play there? There we go. Why is there no sound?
Once Cock Dorsey and Pugatti sipped and roared for the Illuminati. Then bye birdie, in comes Eva. The king bequeaths free speech, not freedom of reach. If you wanna get deported, try criticizing H1B. Well, oops, you've been deboosted. Your attitude is awful mean. To get your accents, you best be positive, cause Elon will eat the negative. He'll lap dance you with his algorithm. Don't mess with Mr. Muskenstein. You can't just spread FUD like Kekias Maximus. Your name's Mud. If you don't laugh enough, just make fake and gay anathema mass ban it if you're deemed obscene. Oh, will it stay? My blue check mark. Ditman during day. Jekyll in the dark. We're deep in dung. Our face is fucked by Tony Stark. Friends, he said you want your shackles. Well, keep tweeting positive. The devil is never negative. So red, full in rig your algorithm. No more regretted user time. No, don't mess with Mr. Muskenstein. You want those accents? Well, then be positive, cause Elon, he hates the negative. His grateful, unhateful algorithm gets more retarded all the time. No, don't mess with Mr. Muskenstein. Go praise Keck for Mr. Muskenstein.
Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely. Fantastic job from that dude. And yes, he can bang on them ivories. He really can. That's what it's gonna have to be, though. It's gonna have to just be a series of ragtime piano jingles and out of context movie scenes or total context movie scenes. For example, what's interesting and unfortunate is that just very recently I saw Aaron and Melissa from TrueStream be like, we're gonna go ahead and offer subscriptions on X, and we're gonna go ahead and see what this free speech thing is all about, blah blah blah. Running the experiment has proven to be well, it hasn't gone in Elon's favor, that's for sure. Which unfortunately means it hasn't gone in Aaron and Melissa's favor either. But this is about the sentiment that everyone has right now.
The bad news in a good way. Yes, I can do that. Yes, bad news in a good way. Yeah. Well, here goes. Wait till you hear this. I just bumped into Robin of Locksley. He's back from the Crusades. He just beat the crap out of me and my men. He He hates you and he loves your brother, Richard. He wants to see you hanged. You bet. We're in an awful lot of trouble. The bad news in a good way. Yes, I can do that.
Yeah. I'm gonna play some of this. I don't know if I can even get through all of it. But again, if you have friends that still watch Alex or are intertwined in that universe, you need to have a talk to them. You need to, friendly, non-threatening, loving way, talk to them about what's actually happened with this fucking clown, because look at this freaking nonsense, you guys. It's special. It's special. And I know it's performance art, but it's performance art in service of the oligarchy, which is just disgusting. Corporate art is never entertaining.
And so to me, when I look at Elon Musk X feed, I mean, it basically 95% of it sounds like I wrote it. And I'm not saying he's saying what I say, just he sees things pretty much the same as I do on most issues. And he has the biggest voice in the world other than Trump. And he's more prolific than Trump. So technically in the info war, he's more powerful than Trump. And I'm not trying to name names here and say who's who. But in my view, I mean, Musk is wrecking the globalists. So that's why I've been gushing over his transformation the last 3.5 years, is because he's doing irrevocable harm to their agenda. And I'm going to go over some of the good things he's done. But that said, a lot of people have wanted me to attack Musk, and most people just do it for attention, or they're jealous or whatever. And they just want to act like they're the holiest of the free speech people. And most of the time I can't even understand what they're talking about, or they twist things. And then I defend Musk, like on the visas, the H-1B visas, not defending H-1B visas. I've had big problems with those. It should be massively reformed, 95%. And I'm the same as Steve Bannon on that. We need a moratorium till the country turned around all the rest of the stuff. We need to get Americans jobs.
This tap dancing fucking, did he start taking the Ozempic? Wasn't he a little bit huskier even just a couple of months ago? Who loses weight over Christmas? Who does that? Nobody. Nobody gets skinnier over the holiday season. How do you go from rotund in September to, I'm not going to say fit and trim, but significantly skinnier in January? How does that happen? Look, man, I've seen Alex Jones eat. He's posted many a video of him and his family, or him and Joe Rogan, or him and any number of people eating steak, meat. That you don't get skinnier over Christmas. I don't think it's meth. I really don't. So if you're not on the methamphetamine diet, you're probably on that Ozempic. Hey, dude. Hi, buddy. Pavlos says Alex was on the throne shitting up a storm in December. He was trying to create the next Bono. Geez, man. Even meth doesn't work that quick, says DC. Yeah. Okay, man. Okay. Well, we made it a minute. That's impressive.
But I just simply said Musk has always been for these visas for skilled workers that he needs. And you can get mad at him for that, but he was the big game changer.
Okay, right there. That's 100% bullshit. And I'm sorry, I know I just, push play, but that is an egregious lie that Alex Jones just told for the benefit of Elon Musk, and only for the benefit of Elon Musk. Let's see. Let's see if it is still up. There was a tweet going around. Yeah. A couple of them. See if the video is still up. Of all of the different H-1B hires that Elon has made, just a, either Tesla or X, and oh, come on. There we go. Yeah, Elon fired 70% of X's workforce in 2024 and hired them back as H-1B. He can't find software engineers in New York. No, just number of the H-1B hires. So remember, the claim was that Elon got rid of a whole bunch of staff at Twitter. Cut the fat. That's what made Doge such a popular idea in the minds of people who never looked into any of this ever once ever. It was because Elon marched in to liberal as hell Twitter, and he cut the fat, got rid of 80% of the workforce was the claim. And now Twitter runs on a skeleton staff of, Adderall fueled, but microdosing as prescribed by their therapist, while also doing ketamine therapy once a week, 3 hours, intense. And that's it. It's just like 12 guys, and they're all on K. And that's what X is now. That's the public perception. The reality is he fired about 10% of that workforce and then replaced 70% with H-1B visas. And that's what X is now. Tesla did the same thing. In fact, wherever Musk could do that, he does that. Okay, we'll run this. It's only 20 seconds.
Tesla has laid off 2,688 employees in Austin, Texas since June of this year. Coincidentally, in 2022 and 2023, Tesla received approval for 2,639 H-1B visas. Wonder if there's any connection.
Now, that should be sufficient evidence, if you didn't already know that Alex Jones was a liar in general about many, many things. That's a direct 100%, very, very easily searchable on the internet. Very, very easily searchable, even on Elon Musk's own platform, to debunk that, Alex. But hey, maybe Daddy Elon told you he was going to buy InfoWars, and as long as you maintain eye contact, Alex, as long as you maintain eye contact, even if you've got both balls in your mouth, maintain eye contact. He'll probably do it. I mean, he might not. He might decide that your employees are too critical. Some of them, anyway. If you don't get rid of, for example, the guy who Elon took the blue check mark away from, Owen Schroyer, if you don't get rid of Owen, maybe you won't buy InfoWars. What would you do? Alex Jones, would you throw your loyal employee under the bus? Wonder.
Probably couldn't have made it past the fraud without him. I mean, let's not lie about that. And so flipping out and saying that Elon Musk has flip-flopped or stabbed people in the back, I said, that's crap. And a lot of people went, oh my God, you're for open borders now. Yeah, right. I just simply said,
okay. It's a huge kind of shift away from, okay, whatever. No, I'll just let it play. I'll shut up.
Hey, on that issue or whatever, separate from the issue itself, when you knew what he was for on that, what is the point of flipping out and behaving like it's something else? But I want to be clear. When I get into this next hour, I'm going to spend an hour on censorship and where it is and where it's going. I am not going to sit here and explain my concerns, and I'm going to wait and see. But just first looks, usually when you have a lot of knowledge, it sounds like fake news because you can define fake news however you want. So it's whoever's defining things is basically saying they're the arbiter of reality. So who defines what's negative? And I can say that obviously when you look at Elon Musk's feed, according to how the left would define something negative, he's criticizing world government. He's criticizing the death cult, depopulation, doing an excellent job. He's criticizing the attempts for post-industrial world and saying we need to keep fossil fuels. He is criticizing the poison shot, the open borders, and devastating it. He is exposing the giant child kidnapping rings in England when they're saying it's upwards of 1 million children raped, disappeared, some killed. And he's going after the unelected EU. He's getting all these great people elected. I mean, we're all doing it together, but I mean, there's like a pie of the populace in any country and influence internationally. I mean, Elon Musk is like 30% of the effect, if I had to be dead reckon. I mean, he's ramming us over the top. And so I get giddy because my goal is not to kiss Elon.
Okay. Wait, no, we're almost done. 8 seconds. 8 seconds.
On Musk ass, my goal is to defeat the New World Order. And that's what I've been, trying to explain forever here. Got a new earpiece.
No, that's actually you just itching because you're bullshitting. Buds. That's what that is. This is from the exact same broadcast. Very, very, very soon after. Okay. Let's go ahead and pull that up. Burr, burr, burr. Burr, burr, burr.
What the hell? And he's exposing Jeffrey Epstein and the CIA. Hell, last week he put out tweets about the CIA at war with America. God almighty. Jones sold out retweeting that. God, I apologize to all of you. I'm sorry. I sold out. I tried to stop the pedophile rings, the giant Muslim kidnapping rings. I'm sorry. I kissed Elon Musk's ass. We're so close to getting the globalists. I want their throats. I want victory. And now you can see it. And you guys think you're going to harass Elon Musk and push him off of supporting Trump and divide Trump and Elon? You're not. We have already beaten your ass. Oh, let's continue. What the?
Woo, y'all. I mean, y'all. Look, again, if you have friends who, hey, Gomez, come here, dude. He's been acting squirrely lately. No, he's not even funny anymore, PV. I don't think that he believes a word of what he was saying there at the end. It's terrible. There we are. Sorry that took a minute. But yeah, it's a double dose of foundering this morning. This is lovely. Lovely.
Pause by the schnoz, hawking ceilings. I'm your molding culture clown. They don't blame me, you haters. My tiny hat ain't round. I'm master race, king of kimchi mention. Smell my sheeny beanie crown. This is a shield of the sheeple. Bow down. I'm collecting shekels, I have them in my hat. Tempted by the sound, I'm a sugar plant. I comb and I seed to shear the wool of my sheeple. We fleece them. Bought your skater park. Watch me ollie while I occupy a town. Kanye cried, whoa, those chosen elite. Gee, I'll gatekeep and shut ye down. Sodomized by the fence that penetrates my mouth. This is a shield on the sheeple. Find out. I'm accruing rubles, YouTube and beta chat. Hustling that luscious mother Russian plant. Donate, I'll dilate for the goons of my sheeple. Strasbourg, don't need daily wire while I laugh for them. Suck up, kiss the wall, yarmulke, hey, hey, hey. The Shabbos-goy yearns for unleavened bread. Pots upon my merch, still I'm ornery. My milk toast turned dirt brown. I have downs me so horny. For midget porn I found. My ears bound, my voice so soy like Troy Cassandra Warren. Watch out, this is the shield of the sheeple. And how I'm Shapiro's hero. She gets of the Skeksis. The Knesset pays my wage, and I praise their name. I'd sell my mom for a small compensation. Your side warrior. The synagogue's whore is sinning again. I'm blandly a boring mud blood pool man. If you think that I'm queer, hold my beer.
Aw, that was lovely. You know, I mean, it took a while, but I'm glad that a ton of people have started to get a hold of what's going on as far as Elon goes, and as far as a lot of the various, you know, mainstream alternative media goes. Good work. Good work. 90s drum and bass lined up with that. Okay. All right. That's good to know. Go ahead and put together a remix. Okay. I mean, we talked about it a little bit ago, or mentioned it a little bit ago. But that fella up north, the one who walks like he's trying to carry corn on the cob without using his hands, Justin Locastro Trudeau, may step down as early as today. Definitely by the end of the week. Canada will be free from the menace that is a guy who can't go anywhere lately without being told to fuck off with Justin Trudeau. Those clips are absolutely hilarious. Canadians are being rude. That's how out of pocket Trudeau's reign of terror has been. Canadians just randomly being like, why don't you fuck off, Justin? Get out. Go to Bertone. Eh? Anyway, let's play this brief little Fox
Got some
News
breaking
blurb.
news north of the border. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau moments ago says he will resign today.
Today.
Says he will stay on until a replacement is picked. CBC is reporting that he's set to hold a news conference next hour. Trudeau is facing mounting pressure from within his own Liberal Party to step down. He trails behind opposition Conservatives in Canada. His job approval is in free fall. You got affordable housing shortages. You got persistent inflation. You got worsening economic outlook. You got all that up against him. For Canadian citizens. So we'll get that to you next hour. We got some breaking news north of the border. Canada's Prime Minister Justin.
All right. So, I mean, he'll probably be replaced by another WEF puppet. But what is kind of interesting, the amount of people who seem to have developed the Zelensky curse. You see, if you shake hands with that clown, you tend to kind of, undeniably be at the end of your political career. So we've got, and of course, they have to now switch it from what was formerly known as the Assad curse, where a number of presidents who said Assad must go themselves went. Now it's the Zelensky curse because Assad, of course, a resident of Moscow, living next door to Ed Snowden. I don't know. But yeah, Olaf Schultz gone. That lady, I can't. Oh, is that? I don't know who that is. Anyway, Biden, old Joe, Boris, Kamala, whoever that bird bitch is, Rishi, they're all gone. They're all gone. Is that Liz Truss? Maybe. They're all gone. Do a little elbow bump. Who pays? Who's gonna pay for Vladdy? Freaking goon. Okay, let's check in with a little bit more of this because this is just some clownish shit. And look, if you guys haven't figured out, or if you have friends that haven't figured out that Lex Friedman is a freaking android that was created in an MIT lab in conjunction with the CIA, they need to get their heads around that. This is insane.
People in the United States think about, and I care a lot about the future of Ukraine is corruption. This is something you have cared a lot about for a long time. You won the presidency 2019 in big part your message of fighting corruption. But there's a lot of accusations that during war, I mentioned $9 trillion in the United States, war breeds corruption. So can you speak to that, how you have been fighting corruption, and can you respond to the accusations there has been corruption in Ukraine?
It's very simple. First of all,
we really have a very sophisticated anti-corruption system. Sophisticated not in the sense that it's difficult to understand, but in that it really consists of many elements. It's the most sophisticated in all of Europe. This is another requirement of the European Union. It was a requirement for Ukraine. And for many years, Ukraine was not trusted. I want to tell you that under me, we all voted for bills, all the anti-corruption reforms, almost all reforms, and all anti-corruption bodies today are independent. They work as requested. I still believe that they are not perfect yet. There are many issues. There is a judicial system, but also a judicial reform that our partners, the United States plus the EU, demanded from us. This is all written out. This is written out in specific laws, in specific decrees.
Problem is, we wrote laws down on the cocktail napkin. Yuri, he spill American beer all over laws. So now we are just openly corrupt. We don't even have elections.
In specific decisions, we did this. We've done 99% of this. If something has not been done, it means that it is on the way. But in principle, all this exists, and there is no such system as we have in Europe. To say that we do not have corruption would be lying. We just talk about it openly. We are genuinely fighting against it.
So at least he's back to doing stand-up, I guess. I don't. Wow. I mean, look. That's, yeah. Kooky stuff. Weird, wild, kooky stuff. That's, ugh. Okay. Sure. Sit down, hang out with a CIA robot. With a straight face, sit there and tell people that you're not the freaking martial law declared ruler for life until further notice because you suspended elections, got rid of every media company except for the one belonging to your personal benefactor, a guy who holds 3 different passports, one of them Israeli. That you haven't gone after the Orthodox Church, that you're not ripping people off of the street to go die in a freaking ditch with the Ukrainian uniform on. Sure. Okay. 750,000, probably more, dead. And then we got this madman trying to twist your arm to get you to lower the age of conscription so you can draft the bottom half of the generation that you just wiped out, or the top half of the next generation and wipe them out. But I'm talking about Samuel Pizar's stepkid, guy who carried Joe Biden's coat for 30 years around D.C. until he finally got made Secretary of State. Annie Blinken. Antony. Now freely admitting that the U.S. has been arming up and trying to push for exactly what has been happening for quite a while.
So first, if you look at the...
He just looks like... remember, maybe you do, if you're old enough to remember the Buffy the Vampire Slayer series, like he looks like a demon from that show. Just sunken, morbid, skeletal face with pupilless black eyes.
The trajectory of the conflict. because we saw it coming, we were able to make sure that not only were we prepared and allies and partners were prepared, but that the Ukraine was prepared. We made sure that well before the Russian aggression happened, starting in September, the Russian aggression happened in February, starting in September and then again in December, we quietly got a lot of weapons to Ukraine to make sure that they had in hand what they needed to defend themselves. Things like Stingers, javelins that they could use that were instrumental in preventing Russia from taking Kyiv, from rolling over the country, erasing it from the map, and indeed pushing the Russians back.
So you see, if we hadn't have given them our weapons beforehand and then provoked Russia to the point to where multiple different districts inside Ukraine reaffirmed their commitment to please let us be a part of the Russian Federation, and then Russia goes, okay, well, we're gonna secure these territories, we're not gonna roll into Kyiv. Because of that, that kept them from rolling into Kiev. It was Kiev until February 23rd, 2022, and then the media all got the script. You gotta say it. You can't say it like that. You say it like this. Let's see. Ugh. Blinken. Yeah, let's stay on Ukraine here for a minute. Bring this guy up. Dave DeCamp filing this for anti-war. On Saturday, Russia said Ukrainian forces fired more U.S.-provided Army tactical missile systems, ATACMS, into Russian territory and vowed there would be a response. The Russian Defense Ministry said Ukraine fired 8 ATACMS into the Belgorod Oblast and that they were all downed by Russian air defenses. Crews of the S-400 and Panzer SM air defense systems countered the attack and shot down all the ATACMS missiles, according to, again, the Russian Defense Ministry. Ministry added Ukrainian attack, which is supported by Western curators, will be met with retaliation. Biden authorized Ukraine to use ATACMS and British Storm Shadow missiles for long-range strikes in Russian territory, despite Moscow making clear the step would risk nuclear escalation. Since then, Ukraine has launched several rounds of attacks on Russian territory using the missiles, which require intelligence from NATO countries to be fired. So, I mean, the longer you don't, Jesus, Vinny. Yeah. The longer you don't, the more they're going to do it. In response to the first round of ATACMS and Storm Shadow attacks, Russia test-fired a new intermediate-range ballistic missile into Ukraine known as the Oreshnik. In December, after Ukraine fired more ATACMS into Russian territory, Russia launched a heavy bombardment of the Ukrainian capital of Kiev, which Moscow said was a response to the U.S. missiles. Over the weekend, Ukraine launched dozens of drones into Russia and started a new offensive into Russia's Kursk Oblast. Ukrainian troops first entered Kursk in August. Invasion of Russia that was launched, U.S. weapons and Western intelligence support. They don't really seem to have much of a desire to de-escalate there. They really don't. which sucks because that's going to get everyone killed. I don't even believe in nukes, but I do believe in long-range missiles and the destruction that those can cause. And a bunch of weird-ass weapons in general. God, that Zelensky thing is just crazy. You know what? I kind of want to go back to more of the Zelensky shit. It's just crazy. It is. And not just because it gives me an opportunity to do the voice. It's not. It's because it's a 3-hour show and we have time. Let's see. All right, let's pull this up and then there's a little bit thicker conversation. And again, all of this is done, in Ukrainian. Lex doesn't speak Ukrainian. I don't know. Maybe they gave him a software update and he's got Babelfish implanted into his humanoid skull and he can understand perfectly. And he's just playing like he doesn't because he doesn't want to throw him off.
The people who attack us, they speak Russian. They attack people who were only recently told that this was actually in defense of Russian-speaking people. And this is why I respect neither the leader or director of today's Russia, nor the people. That's it. And I don't think that you can just pretend that nothing's happening and give Putin a pass once again for saying that we are one people, that we speak one language, etc. They speak the language of weapons. That is a fact. And we are peaceful people. Peaceful people who want to protect themselves and defend their freedom and their human choice.
We are going to completely ignore reality that the actual Nazis openly parade around Ukraine, conducting a pogrom-style attacks on many peoples. And it's no coincidence. We talked about this with Ryan. No coincidence that you see the exact same tactics being deployed in Ukraine as you do and have been deployed in Ukraine, especially where the Azov battalion is concerned, happening all over the place in Syria, wherever HTS goes, because it's the same club, the exact same club. Zelensky goes on about how much he truly hates his neighbors. They're just simple, peaceful Nazis. That's funny. But yeah. Let's like I said, he continues with all of this.
Drowning, and people walk by because they can't hear them. And someone walks on by crying, afraid to save them. It doesn't change anything for the one drowning. They need someone to help them. This is why I honestly despise these people, as they are deaf. They began the occupation in the supposed defense of the Russian language, and that's why with all due respect, I would like to give an interview in Ukrainian. This is very important to me. If there are some points that you want me to explain in Russian, I can certainly do that. I can certainly occasionally speak Russian. But in general, no. I'm not sure that you will understand me completely, despite your Ukrainian roots. You are a citizen of the United States, right?
Yes.
That's why I'm surprised that you don't understand. Well, it was a long time ago. I understand that it was a long time ago. Moreover, a lot has changed. A lot has changed.
If I may please allow me to say this in Russian. Yes, many things have changed, but I have hope. I hope that today many Russians will hear this, that Vladimir Putin will hear this, that the American president, Donald Trump, and the American people will hear this, that everyone will hear this. And yes, Ukrainian language is important symbolically, but what is also important is that we understand each other well.
For Donald Trump? Is it important for Donald Trump whether I speak Russian or not?
Yes, because unfortunately, and it hurts to admit, but I cannot speak or understand Ukrainian yet. So your wit, dynamism, and your humanity will not come through as well and as quickly. Remember, I need to wait for 2 to 3 seconds to hear it. You have a great sense of humor, great stories. With an interpreter translating, I simply won't see this, but I understand that it's painful.
Wow. Wow. The 174 billion was nice, but we ran through. We're out. We seem to have lost about 174 billion. Grulegs is a crazy place with a war zone. You know this. Wow. Wow. At any rate. Weird times, silly times. Before I get into, last week's Psyopapalooza, especially since we had a little bit of an interrupted schedule. Fuck, man. I'm bummed. But better. Not better. I kind of feel like revisiting and since we were making fun of Alex earlier, and again, rightfully so, because he's just on his show, like, provably lying out of his ass and fucking has entirely attached himself to the old Musker nuts' nuts. I feel like because we did that, it's only fair and appropriate that we wrap up today's making fun of Alex Jones with this.
The paradigm of absolute control. And that's why we're just out here doing simple things, pointing out that we're meant to be in nature and be natural. And this is where we find the source that God made to transcend the New World Order. And that's why they want to try to keep us out of it.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people. They're a bunch of Christian murderers, scum. They're on giant death factories keeping babies alive. You selling that body parts. What more do you need to know about these people? I go out and face this scum. They literally crawl out from under rocks. They have green looking skin and they run around screaming, we love Satan, we wanna eat babies. I have them on video. Hillary's in the creepy, weird, sick stuff, man. She sleeps in the same room with that creepy, weird woman whose mother wears a hood over her head. That woman number one is ugly. Imagine how bad she smells, man. I'm told her and Obama just stink. Obama and Hillary both smell like sulfur. In a room, vampire pot, and the goblins are hobbling round, coming after us. My spirit gets close to that evil, and I feel it go. We're such self-centered crap, we don't even notice hell itself rising up against us. Millions of pointed people of the very worst type, and I'm so pissed. We're gonna stab your daughter at the mall. We're gonna stab your wife, your son. We're gonna stab you with a butcher knife, and then the police chief is gonna say, we love our Somalis, we love our Muslims. Oh, they're so good, oh, they're so sweet.
I was watching Fox News as I worked out this morning.
I love it. I love it. Let's get to some jokes before we get into the actual jokes, which are the oligarch, pedophile weirdos trying to exert unnecessary influence over our lives. Jokes first. Yeah, these jokes first, at least. We'll do that.
Sir? I'm gonna need you to go ahead and put that seat up for me.
Why?
Safety protocol, sir. Please, seat in the upright position.
This is for safety?
Absolutely. That's what I just said.
Dude, it's kind of embarrassing. I can't. It's tough to fit. I can't fit with it. If with it back, it helps.
Yeah, you're having a tough time fitting in that seat. Maybe you should take better care of your body.
Are you a psycho, dude?
Sir, I'm trying to keep safety protocols in place. I'm doing this for your own good.
Oh, whoa. It does feel safer.
Is there a problem here, sir?
I'm fine.
Sensing a lot of attitude from you. I just wonder if I've got to go get the captain.
What are you going to tell the captain? We got a guy reclining back there. The fuck's he going to do? Turn it around?
He might.
He might emergency land this thing because I took a nap.
He might.
Is that what did 9/11? 19 fucking dudes reclining?
Did you just say 9/11?
Oh boy, we got a guy reclining.
Sir, can I get you something to drink? Maybe a Diet Coke?
Does your dad know you do this shit?
How about some peanuts? You could scoop them out of my hand, you big elephant.
You know, it used to be fucking hot ladies that had your job.
Way down.
The fuck's wrong with
A
you?
little of this, a lot less back.
What are you talking about?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Upright. Keep it upright. I'll see you on landing.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the flight deck, this is your captain speaking. It appears we've lost the left engine. Not to worry, we have two engines. This plane is built to be flown with just one engine, and there is no way. Fuck. There goes the second engine. If you have someone you'd like to call, I would advise that you do so now.
It's Mom. Listen,
I'm gonna have to call Dad, okay? Is Dad there?
I'm not gonna make it.
Just tell him I love him, okay?
That I love you.
I'll tell Papa you love him too.
Is this Rick's auto body?
Yeah? It's a shame with the fucking red Subaru. Yeah, you guys fucking suck at your job. I'm gonna come down there and beat the fuck out of you, you fucking stupid bitch. All right, I'll be down in 10 minutes. Get ready. You better start stretching. I'm gonna fucking wear you out, dumbass. 10 minutes. Parking lot, pussy.
Excuse me?
What? Calling people I fucking hate.
Did you have loved ones to call?
Am I gonna call my wife and kids? Listen to her fucking bitch at me for the last 5 minutes? Fuck that. I'm about to die, dude. She's gonna fuck someone else, like this year. That fucking pisses me off a little bit.
Haley, just a minute.
What are you gonna tell her? Oh! Nobody wants to hear their fucking mom die. $100 she's putting on Netflix in 1 hour. Actually, fuck it. I'll bet you $1 billion. Call someone you hate. Really fuck their shit up. Give it a shot, dude. God just gave us a gift. Try it.
Haley, put your dad on the phone.
Hey, Mom, I'll talk to you later.
Okay, everybody, stay calm, and we're gonna brace.
How about I relax instead, dickhead?
Do not put that back. Do not put that back.
Oh.
Sir, get that seat up.
Hey, Dave. Fuck you.
You know, I love you, and I knew from the moment I married you. You ruined my life, you dumb bitch.
Remember 07 when I had to go see you in the hospital and you thought I was smiling because I was happy to see you? I thought you was dead.
Yeah, I'm dying. The plane's crashing, so fuck you.
Oh, stop going out with your friends. You think you're too late.
Yeah, learn how to fucking end a story. Jesus Christ.
I remember you. Now you're a living dummy. Goosebumps.
Of course you read Goosebumps, you fucking dumbass.
Ventriloquist looking ass bitch.
I do not look like a ventriloquist dummy.
I know we're probably dying, but if you Google that was a good rap.
Sir, do not bark at the intercom.
I just put my nudes on Instagram.
Yo, you're crazy.
And tagged all my kids.
I'm gonna die. You know I'm trying to make someone come.
How come?
What? Who said that? Marco.
We're gonna make it.
No.
What the fuck?
No!
Oh, shit.
You don't know how to
Are you fucking joking me?
Precious fucking blade!
I was just kidding.
We're all gonna die.
Good morning. Your point earlier about people, starting to ask questions about Musk's actual wealth and things like that. I mean, these are conversations that we've all been having for a long time, and Burmis in particular has had a I need to go expose Elon Musk freaking mission for 5-6 years.
Yeah.
But it is nice to see more and more people, asking questions out loud. And Gareth Ike was sitting there talking. Well, it's a short clip. I'll just pull it up with Rich Willett about Elon. And it's something that I think even maybe you and I mentioned this a few weeks ago. It was either that or I was on the phone with Chris. But
I think it's Google Ventures in with one of Musk's companies. I think it might be SpaceX or one of the two. But yeah,
how does he run all those businesses?
Well, he doesn't, does he?
And chat on Twitter constantly. Again, people don't ask that question, do they?
No.
How's he running all these companies whilst flying over to Israel anytime he's summoned, and chatting on Twitter constantly, and supposedly spending 80% of his time developing and engineering?
He's not doing anything.
I don't think so, mate. I don't think he does anything. I
Okay.
reckon he's basically like the singers from Milli Vanilli.
I think it's Google Ventures in.
But I mean, it's a fair point.
It is.
And
It is. It's and I've seen this. I mean, is that how old is that clip?
I don't know, a week or two.
Okay, yeah. I mean, maybe that they're the ones that really kind of, I mean, my point is that this has become more of a common conversation these days, and it may be that they kind of started that. So it's just that it's fair to say that maybe there's a way he works it out. Maybe he is just, I don't think that. I think it's pretty clear that he's more of a persona than what he actually pretends to be. Like it's a front.
Yeah.
Not that maybe he's a genius, maybe he's worked his way to, but I think on top of that, there's still a lot of grift. And I think that's been pretty proven. Like, but even just, let's just start with the amount that you see in any kind of business, the fake it till you make it element that seems to be in a lot of these kind of high, where like the Cybertruck that we all kind of now know wasn't really ready when he pretended it was, like those kind of things, right? Like that's kind of how that works. But I actually think it's much more than that, which is what they're getting at, that it's more of a facade. But the point is, it's certainly possible that he has a team and he's managing all this stuff and he's just not the one doing it all. I don't think so, though. I think what they're saying is, if you actually look, and for example, take what BX did. I couldn't remember her the other day, but about the tweet thing. And it's different. It's different day to day. Some days you can look and he doesn't bomb it like he normally does. But she showed a day where the timing, as we've talked about, the timing between these one word raising up, take a clip that would get 100,000 views and he goes, yes, and it gets 45 million or whatever it is. It's like, that's a huge thing. And he does that. And the timing between them was like, I just thinking how long it would take to find it, unless you've already got him pulled aside. You can even pretend that he's got him ready to go, right? You've got all these tweets you want to share. The time it would take to get that, pull it up, put yes, even if you had it copied and pasted, it's near impossible. And it was just the way she broke it down. I'm like, that's pretty convincing, and I remember that I played it on the show. And so she was like, this is bots, that he's using bots to mass increase the view of these people. And at the time I was thinking, well, that I was less inclined to think it was as likely as it is today, right? Like right now with what we're seeing and the censorship and the suppression, it's like, yeah, I mean, is anybody really going to deny that that's exactly who he is and what he's shown himself to be? And so what they're saying goes beyond that, right? That it's not just that he's botting his responses, but that does he really run these companies? Is he actually in charge of these things? Or is he just, what I think a lot of people start to ask is just this kind of technocrat, deep state face of the agenda to make you go, we're the rebel fighting them. let me do a tap dance for you. It's like, it's like ridiculous. Like, I'm based and I'm on your side and like all these things. It's just so fucking stupid how I get the sense that he's almost laughing inside how easy it is to play. Like the whole thing spinning out today. Like yesterday, it was all UK and Muslim gang circles. And it's like, again, do not take that for we should ignore this conversation, but just obsessively focusing. While many even conservatives are like, what about what's going on in this country? The same thing they yelled at us. We were talking about Israel's genocide, or people saying, look at the kids in Israel. What about the kids being raped in Israel? The kids being murdered in Israel? Obviously it's not what about it. All of these matter. The point is why he chose to kind of lurch into this while he's being exposed, and then the one today, all of a sudden, which is not the new one, it's kind of just kicked back up again, is vote if you want to, if we should take, basically the way they're saying it is if Greenland should become part of the United States, or if Canada should become the 51st state, or he put a poll out today, or maybe late yesterday, that says, vote. Do you think the UK government how did he frame it? Basically saying that the US should help facilitate a new power structure for the UK.
Yeah.
And I'm going like, I don't care if you think he's trolling or not. Like, guys, this is not support of the UK government. I want no government to exist. If you can't see how he's playing you with this, that he's sowing discord and chaos and division for the same thing you think you're fighting, I'm just like, God damn it. It's just the most obvious thing in the world. Or Greenland, like naked imperialism. Yay. We'll just like, Greenland's like, fuck no, you're not taking this. Like, there's like, that's not the table. That's not even up for debate. And all these conservatives are like, let's discuss whether we should take Green. It's like, they're like, if you push them, they're not like, we're not going to take it. It's going to be some kind of a process. What about the Greenland people? What do they want? It's like, you guys are it's such a facade to pretend like you care about any of that, because the reality is it's like, we think this is better for us. So we're just going to make that happen. Like, I mean, ask yourself this: if every part, like, I could understand if every Greenlander, whatever you call them, wanted to say join another country. Like, I'm okay. That's, by the way, the same as how we should respect Crimea, who wanted to join Russia, or Donbass, who wanted to join Russia, or any number of things. Or, by the way, if Taiwan actually wanted to join, or wanted to break off or join China, both should be respected. The point is that they only care about these things when it suits their interests. And in this case, that's not even the conversation. I don't see any indication that people in Greenland are calling to join the United States. And so it's just this naked imperialism, which, by the way, is fucking globalism. And they are all cheering it along. Again, not the majority. I know that gets lost in what I say sometimes, but I really believe that it's not the majority of conservatives.
Well, and I was making a similar point earlier this morning, but it is wild to watch the push for, as you were saying, globalism, just broad imperialism under the guise of like the North American Union,
right?
Where they're going to absorb somehow Greenland into the United States of Canada and Mexico.
Well, the whole thing, Canada and all of that, right? That's the NWO, guys. I mean, they have maps for this. I mean, it's just fucking crazy. You're just buying right into it.
I made the point about the Club of Rome, dividing the planet up into 10, fiefdoms, basically,
right?
At the top of the show, and that's to me, that's Trump's function. I don't know. The Trump Force One plane landed in Greenland this morning with Ambassador of the administration Donald Trump Jr. aboard.
How is that even fucking? Okay, guys, I am at a loss for how this like right now, he's not even inaugurated yet, right? Like, how the fuck do we think this all lines up? He hasn't signed these, or rather, at the very least, what they have signed seems to have this huge carve out for Donald Trump's own ethics, as well as Elon Musk, as far as I can tell. So right now, we don't have any evidence about who's funding, or whether they have conflicts of interest, which, by the way, we know they do. The whole private prison dynamic, I don't know if you discussed that. The obvious reality that right now, Donald Trump got over $1 million from this GEO private prison firm, who's now frothing at the mouth to like redefine who they are, to be able to encamp all these immigrants they're going to lock up, assuming they're all even illegal, because I'm sure that'll get lost in the mix. But think of it, it's just, that's a huge conflict of interest. They gave him money, and now he's using them to house how do we not know that's the entire purpose of the program? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't think that, but we have to ask these questions, It's everywhere you look right now, man. And so they haven't signed these pledges, or they've made sure that what they did does not have the point for Donald Trump's ethics, which, as the guy who was talking about this from the actual enforcement arm said, that means a foreign government could literally be funding him. Now, if that means, if you want to think China, that makes it more upsetting for you, whatever. The worry that a foreign government could be, and I think it's obvious which one is absolutely provably doing that, and we don't have any worry about that. It's just, that's terrifying to me. And so now we have this part of it, that just all this comes together. I don't know. I'm blown away why we can't have a real conversation about this, and now that he's flying there, or Elon's meeting with Iranian, it's just like, Elon is, okay, Donald Trump is at least a former president. Okay. He already has somewhat clearance on some things. And even though Elon technically does have top secret clearance, which, by the way, should blow your mind, seeing as how it's Biden's administration that he's working through, but that, who cares about the facts? But, the idea that they're having all this, they're carrying out actions that should be done under the current administration. And I'm not saying I trust Biden or anybody else, but it seems like a very weird thing. And why aren't the Democrats screaming about that? Think about it. Okay, when Donald Trump was leaving power last time, if Biden had been running around doing all of this, what do you think Trump would have said? You know what I mean? Like, it just blows me away. Why don't this to me exposes the fake divide in many, in one of many, and that along with many other things, I think.
Yeah. So I don't know if Trump Jr. is there in any official capacity. I'm just saying that he's, representing his, his father and the Trump administration. They flew they call it Trump Force One.
Okay. So I missed. Did you say, so not only Donald Trump Jr., is that what you're saying? Went there? So I misunderstood then, because that changes what I would have responded to right there.
I'll go find the clip real quick.
The point is the same either way, about whether, what they've done so far, Elon having meetings with foreign advisors, or the fact that they did this, before being in that position. But whether or not this one adds to that would change based on whether, I thought you had said Trump flew and that Donald Trump Jr.
No. It's Donnie Jr. Trump, I'm sure, is playing golf today. But yeah, I mean, this is, a Trump plane. Let's just, and yeah, if you want, there's like a little 19-second blurb of Donnie Jr. in Greenland. I don't know if he actually says anything of consequence. I would imagine.
Obviously, I mean, look, whether or not it's official capacity or not, my ears got to pop all of a sudden. Whether it's official capacity or not, it's still the representation of, I mean, obviously, right? Donald, if he's flying there, it is at least perceived to be in some way connected to Donald Trump. And it's just the way it is. And so obviously this still extends that political conversation of whatever they're doing with Greenland, I mean, so does he have any at all? I don't think so. Official capacity around Trump, around Trump's bitten, anything. He doesn't, right?
I mean, not
I don't think so.
Not necessarily. I don't think there's anything on paper that
I don't even mean
connects them.
politically. Like, is he running Trump's companies? Like, I just don't know. I forget whether he is. I think he does, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So my point is that through that, even from a business connection, he's still representing somewhat Trump's empire, Trump's connection point. So him being there is interesting.
Yeah.
Because
How
obviously
is this any different? How is this any different than what Hunter Biden was doing on behalf of Joe Biden?
It's a good point. It's a very good point. But of course, it's totally different. No, But of course, obviously, let's be clear about what that we all know the reality of that story, like the criminality, the you know what I mean. So whether that's we don't know that's happening here. So that's definite for sure, different. But the idea that he is acting in a somewhat quasi political level for his. You know what I mean? Like that, we'll see how it plays out. You know, like I'm willing to bet you that if this goes an interesting direction, then we'll have the same conversation. Like, and there will be all of a sudden be like, well, hold on, there was some kind of a deal made. Like, for example, if he goes right now and makes a deal with Greenland that benefits his business, that technically Trump is not a part of, you know, like this whole fake, I'm not part of it anymore while I'm president. You know, the idea that then could open the door to a conversation. And then of course, something happens with Greenland and the United States. Well, then we would have a similar conversation. Like, was there some kind of a money transaction? You know, we'll see. But I think it's a good point to make that him being there is an interesting step that, you know, I think that it's not like, I guess the point is people would try to disregard this as, oh, he just chose to fly to Greenland. It's just a guy doing his thing. It's like, come on, guys. That's not what's happening.
Who doesn't want to go to Greenland in January?
Yeah.
Ryan, I mean, you know, let's see what he's got to say here.
Guys, we're here in Nook, Greenland. This is the founder, 1721.
Oh, that's weird.
That yellow house with the red top.
Right around
that was his original spot. That's where he moved. This is where it all started out here. Just incredible scenery.
Middle of nowhere.
Cool stuff.
Yeah, that's so all right.
I mean, if the fact that they're having this conversation right now and it's becoming such a big conversation, and the leader of Greenland is like stood up and been like more than once now, like again today's like, this is not up for debate. Like, Greenland is not going to be part of the United States. And who knows? Maybe it will. Maybe that's his tactic to get more money. I mean, who knows, right? But the fact that he's there now, there's just no way you could pretend those aren't connected. I just hate this game that politics in general, left and right, always play, where it's like they love to act oblivious to the things that we all know are actually connected. You know, it's so frustrating. I guess I'm clearly feeling under the weather today, and so I'm already on the edge of irritation about everything political. Like, everything irritates me, but it does though. You know, just all these little dumb things that we all know. That's why I said that earlier, like Myron Gaines, which I don't support, but the fact that he's, you know, I think he's a pretty grifty account, but the fact that he stands up and makes this statement, you know, I don't know. It's just interesting to see how this is all evolving right now. You know,
the split now between like the Bannon faction and the Elon faction is really starting to form up. And Myron Gaines was a Homeland Security investigator before going to Fresh and Fit podcast.
Interesting overlap. Huh?
His name's not even Myron. He's got like a whole ass, you know, long foreign sounding name, Ryan. But yeah, Homeland Security agent turned very influential podcaster.
I swear to God, it's just it's just interesting how many there are, like all these like former CIA. Like, did you see the new Sean Ryan? And he invites another CIA agent on and has another podcast. And apparently,
was that the tweet you sent me?
Huh?
Was that the tweet you sent me from David Icke?
I think so. Yeah. And for all I know, it might have been before the other one. I saw it this morning. I was just watching it. But the point is, it's another interview with another CIA agent. I think it was a new one, and they're talking about 9/11, and they basically say, you know, if you question 9/11, then you're helping the terrorists. You know, it's like. Guys, it's just, you know, it's actually wild how this like rapid fire incrementalism that's like happening. Like there, you know, so typically incremental, like boiling frog, it's supposed to be real fucking slow, you know, like month to month. We're going like every hour we're ramping up this thing. And it's like people that they start the day going 9/11 was a psyop and, you know, Israel's involved. And we end the day where it's like 9/11 was, it's just like these same people. I just don't see how rapidly you can be brainwashed to change your opinions like this. I actually don't think that people, I think we're being played very, very in a large way, like a lot of us are calling out, but it's getting more intense that these the focal point of the Twitter conversation is becoming increasingly honed in, spotlighted on this click, right? On this very clear, and it's not just the Republican, it's just anybody progressing a certain agenda, and so at this point, we're seeing a false reality more than ever, I think, in this platform. And they're right, more people are falling into this than ever. And it's the same point that I make. And it's like, I battle with this every day, that I'm trying to just look to anything else, because the point is that you will find more real-time information on Twitter. And I would argue, though, it's just because more people use it than the other app. It's not because Twitter ultimately is, there are things about Twitter that's why it's more popular. But my point is, if let's just say the vast majority of people were using Gab, well, Gab would be the place to find the more accurate real-time information, because more people are pumping information. That's all it really is. But so the problem is, because they have that influence, I think we're being very, very alarmingly socially engineered, And the point was, though, that it's like this fake focal point, and they're all screaming about this, but I think most people are seeing it. I really do.
No, I agree. And I didn't know who the fuck Sean Ryan was until last week.
I knew
had no idea.
I didn't really know his work that well, but I knew, that's why when I first saw it, I'm like, okay, it's a guy that I kind of already see as somebody who's, anybody who has intelligence connections to me will always be, it's not like I disregard them, but that's a rightful, CIA agents would tell you to do that, right? You want to make sure this guy, you question it, right? Even CIA, not that I trust any of them. For example, what's his name? The guy that was, all around these circles for a while ago. Man, the heavier set guy with the beard. He was a former CIA agent. Anyway.
I know what you're talking about. God damn it. What was that guy's name?
I had a couple of pretty contentious ones with him, and the latter two that I had with him, where I was calling him up, asking him a question about Israel, and really, and I think that's kind of why we stopped having our interviews, because I was asking him questions that weren't happy. But either way, the point was, I almost had it. It's right there on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, the point is just that he was one among others that I've spoken to who tell you that, that they don't trust other agents, because that's just the nature of the work. That's all. Yeah. There's always something going on behind the scenes. And so former is the point. They'll tell you the same thing. Doesn't mean it's always true, but that there is no such thing. That's what they'll tell you. And so the moment you see this going on, you're like, okay, maybe even if they are technically former, maybe they got tapped and we're like, hey, this is important to save the country, whatever. They would jump right up. And, so now that we've seen these things kind of trickle down, it really is a very important kind of case study around how this all works. Right. Look at how rapid fire, and this is what I was just highlighting, right? So the question becomes, did the Sean Ryan podcast actually become as viral as it did? Or was it because it was rammed into this focal spotlight on Twitter? And then it kind of just obviously trickles down, because they all have 10 million followers, and so it kind of populates into the greater Twitter sphere, where outside of that focal circle, where everyone's screaming, everything's on here. This is everything. Oh my God, this is huge. Everyone's kind of interested. Okay. But then, anybody with discernment is like, hold on, there's immediately things that start to stand out funny, and so that's where that within 24 hours, this was already getting knocked down, but it got this presentation as if this changed everything and everyone's on board, and so it shows me that while they're still building this, they're already losing control of that. Now, the question is why. Maybe it's still always question further out. Maybe this is all part of some long-term plan that just angers some people, because that means you never really know. That's the truth, though. But overall, I think we just have to realize that just like with COVID, this is being rapidly rolled out, I think. And maybe that's because of some timeline they think they're on. Maybe the Yuga cycle, maybe we're all going to die in 2030, 2024, or 2045, who knows? Right. But I think they think something that I think they're rapidly trying to rush this out. And look, we can't miss the interesting overlap with the Zionist prophetic picture that's in the same rush right now. Very well could be that. That could be the only thing we're watching, and they're all just rapidly rushing out this control before that whatever they're pushing into reality happens, so they can all be safe in their caves. And the one that Zucker's like, no, I swear it's not a doomsday. I promise it's not a doomsday bunker. What's his name was just saying that. Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, just endorsed Donald Trump and said we're going to work with Trump. And now we're going to do community notes, and we're totally.
I played his little 4.5 minute video or whatever. And we broke that down in the first hour of the show.
Alex Jones came out and was like, now, let me just bring this up, actually. This will make you laugh. I know you've seen this, and this is kind of what I was talking about a second ago. It just seems like all of this stuff is becoming so undeniably transparent. This one was, so Alex Jones came out, and I have been kind of going hard on it because I mean, he's just,
Me too.
in my opinion, I think it's real. It's a time, and I think he's showing himself more than ever. And I've never hid my opinion about these people, but I'm always like, I don't know, I could be wrong about it, but I think whether he knows he's being used, I've always thought that he was being used that way. But so he comes on and he goes, "What do you think Zuckerberg is really up to?" Like even that, it's like, it's just so stupid. Like they're always trying to tap into the circle that they think, But so I simply said, the exact thing the rest of you are up to, Alex. This whole look over there shtick you all seem to think works for you is getting tired. And I don't know if you're seeing that too, but it's like everything, like, so something happens, right? So the idea that Meta and Zuckerberg are now going Trump, and like, yes, you could argue that means that we're winning, but isn't that the exact opposite? Like, you can't, so the Democrats are trying to destroy us. It's all a pedophile cult, whatever the narrative is, or Biden is trying to do this, but then Biden starts helping Trump make a deal with Ukraine. And it's like, oh, well, see, we're winning. It's like, well, hold on though. That doesn't make sense though. Like you can't jump from they're doing this to suddenly them on our side means something. So to me, Zuckerberg siding with Trump, or at least pretending to, is a huge red flag. To me, that would make you go, well, like if that happened with Kamala, well, they would be like, because she's the bad guy. But when this happens, it's because, whatever you want to make sense of. And so my point is, he just tries to go, what do you think he's doing? Instead of coming out and saying, explicitly saying something, like you want to float it as that. This makes you think he is questioning it as opposed to just pointing to it. Elon Musk has been doing this constantly. That's what the whole UK, that's what my room was kind of calling out. Like, look, we all know what you just did, right? You're just pointing to this. Or by the way, the main, like, so right now, what do you, in my opinion, the three things that they jump to right now, it's just like, well, like pedophile conversation, which is very real. We've talked about this a lot. Or Democrat going after Trump, right? Or in this case, like the main thing he's doing now is like the major global pedophile network, right? So it's like, these are all things that are very real, important stories. But the reason I find it almost humorous is that, like, literally Elon's world is burning down. Right. It is like conservatives. It's the same thing we're calling out with Israel. They'll keep going on with his circle like nothing's wrong and you're all missing it and you're being trolled. The truth is that we all see Israel's genocide. Like everyone sees it. Same thing. We all see what's going on. He is losing influence. People are seeing him censor. And so my point is that he just goes global pedophile cult. It's like that's what they think. That's what they think. Like they just jump to the thing. They think that you are going to, and it's a lot of people. It goes, whoa, that's crazy story. But I just think it's that transparent, and even these large accounts are calling it out. It's if it wasn't such a terrifying reality that he's building, and it wasn't such an important story that he's using to cover his reality, it is funny. That's my point. It's like it's lurch. It makes me laugh.
Dude, and then the tweet you sent me from David Icke talking about Sean Ryan, Navy SEAL and CIA contractor, interviewed the intelligence officer over the Vegas Cybertruck, interviews another CIA officer, says questioning 9/11 helps the terrorists. And then Rich had a good tweet here too. How do we know the deep state is very afraid of us? They just trotted out, quote, former CIA agent Sarah Adams, who is 10% humanitarian and 90% warlord, according to her in her own Twitter bio, to tell Sean Ryan the people questioning 9/11 are helping Al Qaeda. They're so desperate to ignore and ridicule us. Now they're attacking. And let's take a listen here.
Is anybody doing anything?
No, and actually, Al Qaeda makes a joke out of the fact that they move the money we give to the Taliban to the camps that train the homeland attackers, right? So it's almost like an insider joke. Like, yes, we are forcing America to fund their own attacks. So that is the plan too, that the money will go back to us and our government. And then that makes Americans also look at our government like it's an inside job. Yeah. You knew it, right? And so Al-Qaeda is going to play that game, which is really interesting. Al-Qaeda found the Building 7 conspiracy stuff fascinating. And they have actually had discussions about how could we do ruses and bring in the Building 7 people to make them blame their government more. So they're actually even looking at our conspiracies and targeting those people.
The wily desert dwelling, cave dwelling, illiterate terrorists, Ryan, stumbled upon the Building 7 conspiracy, and that's why we have terror attacks.
Right, and and let's disregard the live footage of the building, of the building behind her discussing it being collapsed, the fact that no building hit it, and then we know that it collapsed. Like, are these conspiracy theories, or are these just absolutely objective, provable facts, right? The things that we can literally show. Like, it's so ridiculous. Like, this is my point, that you're going to get the people who have a dedicated effort, like Alex Jones, to keep this thing dragged forward, or the rest of these inner circle people. Like, by the way, I'm sure you've seen this cat tour, DC Drano going after Massey now. Like, the whole thing's imploding. Like, someone like Massey, who I equally consider, like, anybody in power, I'm going to be skeptical of. But I see him as one of the best in the circumstance. It's just interesting that the one person you can show who has one of the best track records now just bumps up against these people that are all about, like, team sport politics. And it very clearly shows the difference, but it's so fascinating that those kind of people are the ones that are going to support this because it interests their agenda. And they've shown that, like Kyle Rittenhouse pointing out valid concerns about Trump's Second Amendment stance. They went after him, not because he was wrong, but because you hurt Trump. That's the point. And if you can't see that, or you don't care, then you're the problem.
Yeah. So I don't know what you have pulled up or what you want to touch on first, but that's definitely the priority.
I was just going to kind of give people an idea of, what it looks like overnight now, because they had just started to pop really yesterday morning. We were on the air, and then in the course of mere hours, went from, okay, this is kind of a gnarly fire over in Malibu to there's 5 or 6 fires all within like a 2-county radius. The Getty Villa, not the museum with the tunnels that's like right there in line with the Playboy Mansion, but the Villa Museum that's on the coast in Malibu, completely engulfed in flames. It's supposed to have like double wall protection and stuff like that.
Is this the art gallery?
This is the art gallery. Yeah.
The Flat Earth, I haven't verified it, but they were talking about how it's one of 34 ordained satanic buildings or something like that. I don't know if there's any. So yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't have the okay, so the grotto that they show in Eyes Wide Shut is supposed to be the Getty grotto. Yeah, then everything else takes place like in the Rothschild mansion, right? Yeah. That particular grotto, I think, was endangered, as a result of this. I don't know if it's completely set on fire yet.
Yeah, it's one of those things I was reading. So they were defunded by 20 million, was it, for the fire department? That's the stat.
That's what I've been seeing. Yeah.
Yeah. So mayor's away in Ghana for the presidential inauguration there.
As one does.
Yeah. You've read about the alleged insurance cancellations by the thousands.
I saw a little bit about. I haven't had time to go into. I had debate night last night and all that kind of shit.
I don't know if that's legit. I've seen 2 different videos of the weird fucking like meteor things. One of them was captured by Sam, and he reposted it, and it's just one going across the sky. There's another one with 2 of them in it in the same fucking video. And that's really weird. I have no idea what the fuck that is. Yeah, but we're just going to show some clips and footage now.
Yeah. And the 2 more that you're talking about, that was a TV news broadcast that got those. So I'll pull that up in a second. I don't know if I need sound for this. It's, shit burning. But this is the PCH. And that's the main point of egress from Malibu. You have to get on the one in order to get out of there. And that's what the road out looks like. So that's bad.
Oh, so fucking bad.
That's bad. Preliminary blame was set to 1 brush fire and wind. That's what I've seen so far. So we can talk about why that's bullshit later.
Well, I mean, like, there likely is a significant amount of negligence insofar as the controlled burn of the general region, according to indigenous practices that were necessary in places like Australia going back in ages. And now in the contemporary, well, we don't really do that shit. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a combination of negligence and potentially intention. I'd say first and foremost right now, pray for people, get them everything they need to be okay. We'll build a case over the course of the next week or so and be more nuanced in our understanding of what the implications of this are.
Yeah, because now we've got, like, just within a couple of months, we've got fire and water being used to burn out, drive out, reclaim, take over again. And it's not like Malibu doesn't occasionally catch on fire.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like the San Gabriels don't frequently catch on fire and stuff like that. It does, but as Tease was saying, Forest Service mismanagement and leaving a crap ton of tinder on the ground, and fire starter on the ground, and kindling on the ground, to dry up. It's not good management. It's not. It, like, for years now, we've had very large fires in December, January, and February when it should be the quote unquote rainy season. But my girl was just saying yesterday, like, now the weather people are saying we're not going to see rain for weeks. It's hard to describe how gnarly the spraying has been. They completely moved away from the "we've got weird fog" conversation. But right after the "we've got weird fog" conversation, the freaking, everywhere we're in California where people said they saw the fog is now on fire. So that's weird.
Yeah, if you look at the reset history stuff, just about every major city and the old world architecture and things, or not the old world architecture, but basically the major central hubs were erased in this kind of way and then replaced to be a different way. And that seems to be kind of the direction we're moving with smart cities and everything. And that's a burno at one at a time kind of way. Last year in Alberta, we lost half of Jasper, about more like a quarter of it, honestly. And that was for same forest negligence, tinder kind of thing that was building up that had been warned about for a very long time. So one of the things that you're seeing posted very often, and Steve's about to show you the shot of the meteor thing kind of, but one of the things that's being posted very often is just how grossly negligent the various different allocations of services have become. And when a very rich neighborhood goes up like this, that might actually reach a boiling point of public outcry, and people may be listening, for fuck's sakes. But, like when it's North Carolina, they just got ignored for different reasons. And it's one of those things where as I'm watching and I'm just wondering when the fuck people are going to wake up to the allocation of goods and services in a responsible manner, and also the fact that war is fought differently now. But anyway, just here's the meteor thing, whatever the fuck this is, orb, CGI, who the fuck knows at this point.
And I know you guys can't hear it. It's just a screen record anyway.
And you're going to want to open it to large screen because it's very small.
It is. Yeah, were we saying it's that?
Yeah, no. It goes across the screen like very quickly. You just have to like put it on full screen.
It is on full screen. That's as big as it gets.
On either side.
Huh?
It's off on us on either side.
Oh, on this thing. Okay, there we go. Come on, fucker, do what I want you to do. Thank you.
Yeah, so you should be able to see it go by.
The following closures are in place because of the Palisades fire. This is southbound PCH.
There. So
yeah.
It's difficult to see it on this. It just looks like a fucking meteor or something, or like an orb flying through the sky, covering a huge amount of terrain.
Yeah, very quickly. Yep. Just brown, right over the top of the burn zone is what it looks like.
Yeah,
let me. I'm gonna go try and find Sam's.
Yeah, I think Sam's posted the same one. There's another one with 2 of them. Yeah, I'm really sorry for everyone who lives in that neighborhood. It's yeah, not really anything I can say to do justice to it.
Right. Let's see what this is. And if it supplies
What in
anything.
the world was that? Watching Fox News coverage of the Eaton fire, there is this light that goes from the fire, as you can see here, and
Yeah.
it zips across the screen
Yeah.
out of range. I don't know what we all just witnessed. I wasn't the only one that saw it. There are many other people online that have screen recorded this. It is super weird. Did you see it? What do you think?
Yeah. So it's really interesting because it's almost like the convergence of psyops in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's weird. Like I know relatively where she is, and I was up that way or towards there the other day, and it felt the exact same. Gonna be up there this weekend. 'Cause I need some freaking El Roy's Mexican food. It's not Elroy, it's El Roy. Oh, anyway. They got a banging taco truck in Santa Rosa. If you're ever in Santa Rosa, California, stop by Elroy's taco truck. Hit that shit up. It's good.
Yeah, we'll see how this shit develops over the man. Ooh, fuck. Let's hope it doesn't get worse.
Dude, I mean, it's getting it. We were on the debate show last night before we went live. We were looking at some of this stuff, and the weather warning just for anyone affected by Santa Ana winds said 70 mile an hour sustained gusts of wind. Yeah, like that's crazy.
Yeah.
And really all I think we all know this, but fire only needs a little bit of oxygen to go take off like that. And if you've got 70 mile an hour winds pushing it, have you ever been at a party where there's a burn barrel and someone starts the fire with a leaf blower?
No.
Okay. I highly recommend it. Best way in the world to start a fire.
No. Old Christmas trees that are completely dried out for a year stacked on top of one another. It goes like 20 to 30 feet.
It does. You don't even have to wait a year. You just buy your Christmas tree the weekend after Thanksgiving, and then you wait until the Super Bowl to go stack them, which is the first weekend of February. All right. And so you give it's a couple of months, mid plus a week or so. And it is I promise it's dry enough. It's dry enough because we did this one year at my buddy Jeff Staley's house. We had a Super Bowl party. It was very festive, and it was also a Christmas tree burning. And we had easily 30-foot wall of flame. Yeah.
So we will attempt.
Fire department showed up. They were like, "What the fuck are you guys doing?" And we're like, "We're partying, dude. You want to hang out? You want beer? You want some food? What how's it going?" They're like,
I did that one time when my neighbor's house was on fire across the street. I was standing out front of it because it's snow out, so I had a beer in the snow, and I was eating like Wendy's hamburgers. And the firefighter like walks past me because they're like casual. It's one house and it's controlled, and there aren't any casualties or anything like that. So they're just like, they stop and they're like, "Man, really?" And it's because they're like appreciating that I'm watching them, and they're hungry and they're so jealous. So yeah. This is not one of those situations. This is a horrible. Let's not talk about how fire can be fun or funny. Oh man.
If I ever leave this world alive, well, thank you for the things you did in my life. If I ever leave this world alive, I'll come back down and sit beside your feet tonight. Where